to the Future, otherwise known as episode 48, Tomorrow's World Audit Time. Evening, Mark.
Evening, Russ. How are you?
Oh, much better now, Mark, much better. I would like to apologise to all of the listeners that it's been ages since we've recorded an episode, isn't it? Mainly because,
yes.
I mean, there's two things. So you've been very busy at work, but
yes.
Equally, more importantly, I think, Mark, is I lost my voice for the best part of a month. And
yes.
I didn't want to put the listeners through a sort of RFK style broadcast. So I thought it best to wait until I think I can still hear a little bit of a gruff there.
There's a bit of a rasp, right? Yeah, there is. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Now that you said it.
Yeah, but at least I think it's listenable, Mark. I think it's listenable. But yeah, been some exciting things since the last episode, haven't there, Mark? I think we left our listeners on a little bit of a cliffhanger. We recorded the last episode on the very night that we were going to go on Radio 5 to speak to Tony Livesey.
Livesey, yeah.
Livesey. We obviously...
And Al Needham.
Yes, and Al Needham. Good old Al. Probably not all of our listeners follow us on the socials, but we popped a little recording of that up on the socials. And then, amazingly, Mark, we must have done well, mustn't we? We must have impressed somebody over at Radio 5.
Well, you know when people say, "Oh, that was really great, we really loved it," and you go like, "Oh, that's very sweet of you," but I'm sure you say that to everyone. Well, I think they meant it. Weirdos. They meant it, Russ.
Yeah. I thought it was like, like people always talk about when they go to Hollywood and the producers, or they speak to the producers and they always say they would shower them with praise and then never hear back from them ever again. But we actually did hear back from them very soon afterwards, didn't we? It was only, a couple of weeks or so. And it turned out that by pure coincidence, the BBC Central Planning team decided to do a little article on Tomorrow's World for the BBC News website, where they had a very special episode of Tomorrow's World, which I think we should look at maybe at some point in the future. Not this time, not today, but at some point in the future. An episode from 1995, which was the 30th anniversary, where they looked forward to 2025. And basically, I'm no bones about it, Mark, they essentially copied us, didn't they? The BBC News website copied exactly our principle.
You're very generous. They straight up ripped us off.
But to sort of, what's the word, to soften the blow, to sweeten the deal.
Oh, yeah, to sweeten the deal, to leaven the bread.
Yes, they did invite us back on Radio 5 to talk about this very subject. And obviously we jumped at it, despite it being New Year's Day, perhaps, certainly my brain not working particularly at 100% speed. We went back on the show, and this time we spoke to whoever was standing in for Tony. What was his name again?
I quite liked him, actually.
Yeah, he was a really nice bloke, wasn't he?
It was really lovely. He really seemed to kind of get us and be quite excited about the thing.
It's an Irish name, Connor. It's Connor. Connor Phillips. Was it Connor Phillips?
Connor Phillips. I remember.
Connor Phillips.
Connor Phillips.
I know. I'll remember it by ConocoPhillips, the oil company. Anyway, yes, Connor Phillips, lovely man.
Lovely man.
And before that episode, when I was emailing the producer, I suggested, Howard presents this episode, or one of the presenters of this episode. Have you considered getting him on the show? And obviously, we know Howard's email address, don't we? Because he's emailed us before.
He's emailed us, yeah.
And so I suggested it, and the producer only bloody well did it. I got him on there.
I know.
Yeah. And we ended up...
That's amazing.
We ended up on the radio with Howard Stapleford. But it was even better than that, Mark. It wasn't it? It was even better than that.
Yeah.
Because old Connor suddenly, without warning, not telling us this was going to happen at all, just suddenly lets us interview Howard Stapleford ourselves.
He just gave us 10 minutes to interview him. Yeah. Mad.
Yeah.
It was really lovely. I really enjoyed it. It was a bit. I would have liked to prepare questions in advance. Yeah. I did feel my brain explode into actually thinking, "Holy crap! I've now got to think of good questions to ask."
Shall I?
Thank God, at least one of us did it.
Shall I just put the Howard bit in now?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
For anyone who hasn't heard,
anyone who's
good fun.
Yeah, anyone who's not come across this yet, I'm going to pop the Howard bit in here.
Before we go through the episode in mind, right? It's an episode where they sat down and said, this is what it's going to be like in 2025. It is 2025 now. Lads, the three of us collectively together we should all genuflect. That's okay. We should all get down. Just give a wee bow before we break it all down. Let's see if this works. I'm delighted to be joined by the legendary presenter of Tomorrow's World, Howard Stableford. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for doing this late or this early in the morning on the second day of the year. Happy New Year, my friend.
Happy New Year, Connor. Thank you very much for inviting me on. Happy New Year to Mark and Russ as well. I'm delighted to be able to speak to Mark and Russ because I've listened to their podcasts over the last few years, and what they tend to spend and specialise in is taking the mickey out of what I'm wearing.
Caught, lads. Absolutely caught, lads. Hook, line and sinker. Russ and Mark, it would be remiss of me not to allow you to respond to such an allegation from a televisual legend.
Oh, come on, Howard. There are some really spectacular outfits over the years, weren't there? Did you choose them yourself?
We did have a little bit of help from the BBC wardrobe department. I was thinking about this particular show, though, because we all decided, to think about it. It looks like, from 1995's perspective, if you look at the visuals, we've decided that everybody wears beige in 2025. Yes. And I decided that I'd wear glasses. Well, I wear glasses for reading, but I don't wear them normally. And I decided to have a comb over as well. I decided to put a high part. And what I missed was I really wish I'd made them put a bald thing on my head, so that I was bald with those tufts on the side. That's what I really should have done. I missed a trick there.
Mad Professor vibes. Is that what you were looking for? Doc Brown from Back to the Future, ironically.
Exactly. That would have worked beautifully, yeah.
It was an incredible programme. It ran for such a long time. Why, and Russ and Mark both alluded to it there now, why did you have such a good hit rate of getting things relatively perfect sometimes?
Well, from my perspective, it was the incredible work done by producers, assistant producers, and the networks that they built amongst industry, amongst companies, amongst universities, amongst researchers and academics, so that we were very well informed when we went into kind of writing scripts and creating something for television as to what was down the path. And of course, we'd get the perspectives of industries and academics to see what they thought were going to be the future ramifications as technology and science was introduced. So it was very well researched, I'd say.
What were your highlights from your entire time there? You were there 1985 to 1997. So what were the things that you predicted? And again, in a few minutes, we will focus more on 1985 right through to 2025. But what were the things across the entire time you were there that really you think about and go, yeah, that was a really special one to get right?
I think it was. There were many, many, many things that just stand out. But I was reflecting on this today, thinking because you invited me onto this program, and one of the things that we talked about a lot was recognition, was personal recognition. How does the internet, how does this cyber world know it's you? And for a long time, we went down the path of voice recognition. And voice recognition, we had all kinds of things on Tomorrow's World, and Maggie Philbin and I would demonstrate voice recognition, and every time it would fail. And that was because when you're under pressure on live television, your voice slightly changes, and it never worked. It never worked because it was distorted in some way. But the way that we are now, I use here in my laptop in my office, my fingerprint, to access my banking accounts, my computer itself. I think those are the kinds of things that really are extraordinary. And only today I went to a supermarket without my credit cards, without my phone, no way of paying apart from the palm of my hand. And I simply had to put the palm of my hand over the display, and it said, yep, that's Howard Stableford. We've got a link to your account, and off you go.
It's the future, Howard, some would say. It's the future. Well, look, I know my name's on the top of the door tonight. I know I'm covering for Tony this evening. But, lads, I'm going to take a wee step back. Russ Cope, Mark Agnew, who are co-hosts of the podcast Tomorrow's World Audit Time. The floor is yours. Ask Howard any questions you want. And you can go time about, right? So Russ, then Mark, Russ, then Mark.
Okay, Howard. First question. We've just covered your 1987 Christmas quiz, the one with Rod Hull on it.
Seminal television, top class telly.
Of course, the jumper you're wearing in that is a special Tomorrow's World Christmas jumper. Did you get that specially made?
Yeah, so that became all a bit of a joke. The first time I ever did that it was just a horrible Christmas jumper. And then the next year, we did that quiz for several years. And the next year, they decided, why don't we put some lights in? And then a year after that, the lights got bigger, and they got bigger and bigger until, and it might have been the Rod Hull and Emu program, I'm actually wired into the chair from which I'm presenting. And that thing was boiling hot. It was just kicking off so much heat. So it was a bit of a joke, really, at my expense, as usual.
See, when people tuned into this today, they thought themselves, I'll listen to a wee bit of radio for the new year. You didn't think you would get Tomorrow's World's Howard Stableford talking about Rod Hull and Christmas jumpers at what? midnight on the second day of the year. Absolute gold. Brilliant. Listen, by the way, if you want to send in a question, because we'll have Howard for the next just couple of minutes, right? So send in a question. Be quick. 08085 909 693 if you want to send in a WhatsApp. If you want to text us, 85058. Mark, the floor is yours.
I was just thinking the number of episodes you're on, Howard, and so many famous things. We even watched one recently where it felt like you were one of the very first people to interview Stephen Hawking, who obviously is in this episode as well, only a few years later, and he's obviously the celebrated, the legend that he became. I suppose my question was there anything that you did in the show that genuinely had you really excited that you then never heard of ever again? Like, was there anything that you kind of thought, this is amazing, and then just nothing?
That's a really good question. First of all, it was extraordinary to be able to talk to Stephen Hawking in his offices at Cambridge University. A total highlight of my career, and I'm sure of many people's careers who were lucky enough to meet him. And when I live in the United States these days, and I talk to a lot of American audiences, and that name is the name that makes everybody gasp and say, wow, you really met him? That's extraordinary. So very, very privileged to have been able to do that. Yeah, there's one invention which I thought, I'm going to back this. I'm going to actually put money into it. And I'm so pleased. It was the one financial thing I did right because I didn't put money into it. But it was the answer to, if you live in a high-rise building, and now we have satellite dishes pointing to the satellites for television, the whole thing becomes an eyesore, looks like a hedgehog or whatever, with the buildings bristling as everybody's got their own dish pointing at the spotlight, at the satellite. So somebody came up with a brilliant idea of, it really was just a series of concentric circles on a transparent blind that you pulled down over your window that was vaguely pointing south. So then there was no eyesores on the side of the building. You didn't need any firmware, hardware like the dishes and whatever. You just had a blind that you pulled down. And I thought that is the answer, not only technologically, but socially as well, to what is a particularly difficult problem. And it went nowhere.
That's incredible.
You get Deborah Meaden and you get your man who does all the podcasts, Stephen Bartlett. You go and tell them now and see what happens. Although the dish is dying, isn't it? The dish is dying, Howard.
Yes,
isn't it?
exactly. Well, exactly, and even then, now, of course, 30 years later, we don't need dishes. We just don't need them.
Go on, I'll give you a couple more each if you want. Russ, if you get a quick one, and then Mark have one quick one, and then we'll allow Howard to go and spend 2025 not getting harangued by three idiots on the radio.
There was a lot of foreign travel on the programme throughout the years, and you went to a lot of different destinations all around the world, a lot of them quite exotic and nice looking. Firstly, what was your favourite place you went to? And secondly, how was they sort of divvied up between the presenters? Was there, you have to arm wrestle for it, or toss a coin?
Well, it's a great question. I was always up for everything and wanted to do every foreign trip. And so I got lucky with the Chernobyl nuclear reactor a documentary that we made, because Judith was actually slated to do that, and Judith Hann, and she decided she didn't want to go in the end. So I got very lucky with that, because it won some, nice international awards for the program we made in 1989, which was 2.5 years after the Chernobyl reactor blew up. But for me, two big. I remember traipsing around the jungles on the Laos Vietnam border looking for traces of the Vu Quang ox. Was it extinct or was it not? And things would happen, like we were supposed to go across a canyon on a bridge across a valley, and they'd taken up this wooden rickety bridge to do something with it. So we had to pay $50 for them to rebuild the bridge so that we could get our jeeps across to the other side of the valley. And meanwhile, we sat back down by the creek next to this woman's house who made us chicken and noodles, and the chicken was dispatched from the backyard. And then, so that's one thing. And then the other one I'll mention is that we did a Siberia special. Of course we did. Of course we did a Siberia special in the middle of winter. And the opening shot was me walking across a frozen Lake Baikal with the Altai Mountains in the background. And it was a big helicopter that took this shot, and they went out of sight and out of hearing distance as well. And they said to me, just keep walking in this direction and we'll come in very slowly and take this long shot of you walking across the ice. And it was the most extraordinary moment in my life, because I was out there in the sunshine on frozen Lake Baikal, alone on the planet, just me, alone, not a sound, nothing, couldn't hear the helicopter or anything. And it was a real kind of, human moment for me that I'll never, ever forget. So the technology, the science, of course, was exciting and it was real riveting, but we got ourselves into some extraordinary places. And I'm really grateful to Tomorrow's World for allowing me to have those experiences.
And Mark, a short one for you, but you're not allowed to ask him about any of his clothes, right? We've done that.
No, I was just thinking, this is my last question. I'm going to be slightly cruel and ask, I'm fascinated to know, who was your favourite co-presenter? Who did you just work with that you just loved that time together?
Oh, that's tricky. Now, you see, there'll be a fight, because I still am very good pals with Judith Hann and Maggie Philbin. Talked to Maggie just the other day. I'm going to see her in a few weeks' time when I'm in London.
Lovely.
Judith Hann is godmother to my oldest daughter, who's now 31. And Judith came out. I live in the United States, as I mentioned. She came out to stay with us for 2 weeks, not very long ago. Oh. So it has to be an equal tie there, otherwise there'll be fights.
I'm happy with that. I love that you're all friends. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah. Super questions. Thank you so much for this, lads. Really, really like this. So I'm just going to ask you, Howard, how do you fill your time these days? What do you get up to? I'm sure there are books and ledgers, and I'm sure there's a raft of stuff in the attic we'd all love to see.
Yeah, so I use my experiences with the BBC generally and Tomorrow's World in particular to tell stories around leadership of all things. I do a lot of work with an organisation called the Centre for Creative Leadership, and I try to develop leaders from all kinds of not-for-profits, for-profits, and I use all the stories from Tomorrow's World and the scrapes and the wonderful things that happen to us as broadcasters to illuminate the content as we go through how to develop yourself as a leader, leading other people, which is a complex thing to do.
So as a leader, are you happy with us saying good night to you now, and then what we're going to do is talk about you behind your back for the next 24 and a bit minutes? Are you okay with that?
I'm fine with that, because the technology now allows me to listen to everything you say, even though I'm 5,000 miles away. You're not going to get away with it.
Oh, fantastic. Where in the world are you exactly, Howard?
I am in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and I've lived here for 25 years.
Well, listen, to you and all your family, a massive Happy New Year. This has genuinely made our evenings. I know it's made mine, but poor Russ and Mark are going to explode at any stage. So thank you to you.
Russ and Mark, keep up the good work, Russ and Mark. I listen in from time to time. And Connor, it's been a pleasure to meet you, and Happy New Year to you all.
Thank you to you. That was great. Lads, how was that? That was brilliant, wasn't it?
Incredible.
Oh, that was
Thank you very much. That was
is he definitely hung up?
Let me just check. Yes, he's definitely gone. Right.
It was so much fun, right? God, that was just absolutely, I mean, genuinely, I was chuffed to bits, and he was so lovely. I mean, little bit of ribbing, but that's because I think he does listen, so he does know. Hey, he knows we can take it.
Yes,
we dish it out. The least we can do is take it back.
Yeah, we were getting on like old friends. It was.
I know.
Oh.
Yeah, it was good fun.
I don't know if the problem is, Mark. I don't know whether we can ever. I mean, how can we ever go further than that? I mean, I think we've peaked already.
Before we started doing this, we did kind of think like, well, God, what if we ended up like broadcasting with one of these people, or ask, kind of being, because I think the reason we've never asked anyone on is because the way this works is like we could, but it would be a special episode rather than a normal episode. And actually, lots of people we know have definitely, they've definitely asked me, I'd love to come on with you and talk about it. And actually, I suppose my other concern is that, like, these are already long enough, aren't they? The last thing you need is 50% more content being added to it, with a third person. So yeah, but it was a real thrill. It was just a delight. Yeah, the whole thing was really fun, and Connor was just lovely. Really got it. We seemed excited about the whole thing, and yeah, we hope to do it again. It's a ton of fun. It's quite stressful, I'll be honest with you, realising you're about to go live to the nation.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things where, like, you go live to the nation. I find it really nervous and stressful, and then it starts and it's fun, and then it finishes and it's 1 a.m. and I go like, well, I'm not going to sleep for an hour now.
No, absolutely buzzing.
Just absolutely buzzing my tits off, with the adrenaline. Yeah. Luckily, the New Year's Day one, I realised, I was saying to my wife just before, like about 9 o'clock, I think I'm actually feeling quite tired. I kind of wish I wasn't doing this. And it was only when I woke up the following day that I realised that's because I was ill. So yeah, it was like it was like day 0 of a 6-day, one of those things that was going around. So actually, I did sleep well that night, Russ.
Well, we look forward, hopefully, Radio 5, if you're listening, anytime you like, we're always here. We're the smashy and nicey of Tomorrow's World content.
You've got time to fill? We'll jolly well fill it.
But let's get on to today's episode. So, obviously, the biggest event that's happened recently, Mark, is the Donald Trump's second inauguration. And I was looking back in time, I was thinking, are there any inaugurations that have any sort of similarities to this one? And the one I've landed upon, I think probably has quite a few similarities, is the second inauguration of Ronald Reagan, which happened on the 21st of January 1985. So we've got the closest episode to that, which is 17th of January 1985. And I think there's quite a few obvious connections. Obviously, Ronald Reagan, Republican, quite right-wing for a Republican, became famous in the entertainment industry first, perceived as a bit thick, good relations with the Russian leader. Somebody attempted to assassinate him at one point.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
And of course, oldest president.
Yes, he
at
was,
the time.
Wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. Yeah. Reagan was 73 during this inauguration, against Trump's 78 this time. And of course, the one that I particularly notable, I think, is that the inauguration took place indoors. That Reagan one was the last time it happened, and obviously this Trump one happened indoors.
Notable cognitive decline as well.
Oh yes, yeah. Do you know how cold it was in 1985? The reason why they held it indoors? Do you know how cold it was in Washington on that day?
I mean, I have to see it in centigrade, Celsius. Bloody hell! I mean, because obviously it's been below 0, and it's always below 0. They persist in having it in January every 4 years. It's always below 0, isn't it? I mean, it must be like. It has to be below 10, like 10 minus. What is it? It was
minus 14, but the wind chill factor was minus 32.
Jeez Louise, that is so, I don't think I've ever been anywhere that cold.
No, you don't want to be putting 73-year-old men out in minus 32 degrees.
No.
Reagan had absolutely obliterated Walter Mondale at the election. He won every state apart from Washington, D.C., which isn't a state, and Minnesota, which is where Walter Mondale was from. Mondale?
Mondale. Yep.
Mondale. I thought it was from Mondale. But obviously, the other big thing I was thinking, since Trump's been inaugurated, we've just had an absolute plethora of plane crashes, haven't we? It's been real
It's a bit weird, right?
It is a bit weird. It is a bit weird. And I was thought, oh, hang on a minute. Were there any plane crashes like around the same time as Ronald Reagan's inauguration?
Wow.
Bloody hell, Mark.
Really?
There was a plane crash on the day of the inauguration.
There was.
On the 21st of January, 1985, Galaxy Airlines Flight 203 crashed shortly after taking off from Reno, Nevada. Now, this is the amazing bit, Mark, which really sort of makes you think. There were 71 people on board. 70 of them died immediately on impact. The plane crashed into the city. 70 of them died on impact. Apart from one 17-year-old boy called George Lamson Jr., who was found by the emergency services upright, still in his seat, conscious and alive, in the middle of the street.
Whoa.
He was thrown clear of the explosion somehow, and he was just sitting upright in his seat, like going, "What the hell just happened there?"
That must be so weird. I don't suppose you know, what did he do with his life?
He stayed in the area, actually. I mean, it's a bit sad because he was
in the chair.
yeah,
just clutching onto the armrest.
He said he was coming back from some sort of sports event, and he was with his dad, and so his poor dad died in there, and he doesn't celebrate it with the level that you think you might do. You might think you go around calling yourself the world's luckiest man or something like that, or
I think I have to say I think we're all familiar enough with the idea of survivor's guilt to know that unfortunately that's not what people do, Russ.
Like, do you want to come and sit in my lucky seat? Whatever. I don't know.
Oh, I booked tickets. Do you mind if I bring my own chair with me?
yeah. But no, he's still around. I think he still lives in the area. Obviously, there was a bit because it's the anniversary this year.
Of course.
So there was a bit of some events
40 years,
in Reno about it, but he didn't really want to get involved apparently. But
it's telling, isn't it?
Yeah. The other thing about inaugurations, the other big thing about inaugurations, Mark, of course, is who's going to turn up. What celebs are going to turn up to sing or speak or whatever. Trump was real slim pickings at Trump's one, wasn't it? I mean, we had was it Carrie Underwood, Snoop Dogg, Nelly. John Voight,
John Voight,
not a lot. Whereas,
are you going to tell me that at Reagan's slim pickings went?
Well, actually, in 1985, rather than having them all at the inauguration was actually quite a staid official affair. They had the gala 2 days before on the Saturday night. So somebody has uploaded they obviously taped it on video and uploaded it to YouTube. I watched the whole thing the other night, Mark. It's 2 hours, including adverts, of original adverts.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
The only thing is, because it's a video, it does sound a bit, there's something wrong with the sound, so it does sound a bit like there's a helicopter overhead at all times. I will show you a little bit of it, but I just wanted to read you, this isn't an exhaustive list, these are the people that stood out to me, people who you will definitely have heard of. I mean, there's a few people in there I didn't really have heard of before. But we had the Beach Boys, Ray Charles, Perry Como, John Denver, Zsa Zsa Gabor, Cary Grant, Charlton Heston, Dean Martin, Don Rickles, Diana Ross, James Stewart, Donna Summer, Elizabeth Taylor, Robert Wagner, Dionne Warwick, Tom Selleck, and Mr. T.
Wow.
And the whole thing was compared by the chairman of the board, and they keep calling him that, chairman of the board, Frank Sinatra.
That is star-studded, right?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't compare, does it? But I thought I'd just play you. So there was a impressionist called Rich Little.
Okay.
Have you heard of Rich Little? I feel like I've vaguely heard of him, but I don't think I've ever seen.
I'm already on edge by the idea.
I've never seen any of his work before. But I thought I'd just play you. He comes on at the start, so I'll play you Mr. T and Rich Little because I think they give you a lot of real flavour of.
Does Rich Little pity no fool go on?
No.
Oh, thank God.
Mr. T says something. No, it's not offensive. The only person that said anything offensive in this is Don Rickles, and he comes much later.
Oh, because that's what he does. All right, let's go.
To get things rolling, I'd like to introduce a gentleman who, if he decides to melt down all his gold chains, he could wipe out the national deficit. Please welcome Mr. T.
Thank you, Mr. S. It's a thrill for me to be back here in the nation's capital. Last time I was here, I played Santa Claus at the White House. Where else but in America can a black man from the ghetto play a white man from the North Pole and live to tell about it? Now I'd like to introduce another performer who is used to playing many parts, including the President of the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Rich Little.
Well, there he goes again. Before I start speaking tonight, I would like to say something. You know, a lot of people ask me how I stay so fit, look so good for my age. Is it horseback riding? Is it dancing around the press? Or is it chopping wood and clearing brush? Well, it's none of those things. Every afternoon before I start work, right after my nap.
It's a pretty good impression, and I'd just forgotten that all anybody ever does to do Ronald Reagan impression is go, well.
To be honest, when he came in, he was just doing the kind of,
Yeah.
I thought, you know what? If he just walked off right now, he'd get a standing ovation. He wouldn't even have to say a word, and he'd be,
Yeah.
He's very,
And the good thing is, at the very end of the gala, obviously Ron himself comes up to say thanks to everyone. And he does an impression of him doing an impression of him. So he does the whole,
that's nice.
Here I go again.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
Lovely
good fun.
bit of business.
Yes,
I mean,
yeah. It's funny.
Well, I suppose that was the thing. That there's one big difference, isn't there, between Reagan and Trump, which is that Reagan clearly had a sense of humor about himself.
Yes.
The Trump absolutely has in spades. That guy loves to laugh at himself, doesn't he?
I mean, arguably the whole reason we're in this mess is because he failed to laugh at himself, isn't it? Isn't that that's the thing?
That's definitely one of the inciting incidents. Isn't that what they talk about in the storyline? It was the Washington Press Obama thing. Yeah, you watch that back every day because I watched that. I don't know, maybe I watched it a year ago. The jokes are still really funny. If anything, they're funnier now because you know what happens or you know how true they all are. But then there's also a part of you thinking like, oh, maybe you should just have pulled a sickie that day.
Anyway.
Oh, well.
Talking of inciting incidents, Mark, shall we incite this? Can you incite an episode of...
By pressing start on the button there.
Yes, that works.
Oh, I don't need to listen to the weather forecast to know it's the coldest night of the year. My feet are like blocks of ice. Oh, now, I know that I could turn my electric blanket up, but give it 10 minutes and the rest of me is just going to be too hot. So I have to turn it down again and my feet get cold. So I'm afraid there's nothing for it. We're back to the old socks. But wouldn't it be great to have a blanket which knew when my feet were cold and could warm them up, but wouldn't make the rest of me too hot? Well, walk this way, folks, because through here we have just that. A blanket which knows which bits of me are hot and which bits of me are cold. Now, this may sound a bit too good to be true, but it's able to do that because it has a special heating element running through it, which consists of 2 wires rather than 1, and a special conducting plastic running between the 2. Well, over here we have a rather enlarged version of that. Here we have the 2 wires carrying the mains. Now, that isn't where most of your heat comes from. That's generated by the current passing through the plastic from one wire to another. And the special property of this plastic is that it can react to the temperature surrounding it. So, say your feet are really icy and the temperature around them drops. Well, the electrical resistance in the plastic in that part of the blanket will go down. More current will flow through, and my feet will be toasted up nicely. But if the rest of my body is feeling rather hot, then the opposite happens. The resistance goes up, so less current flows along, and I stay comfortable. So the great thing about this blanket isn't that it just heats evenly, but that it can react locally to the different temperatures all over my body. Well, just to prove the point, have a look at this setup over here, where we have a thermal imaging camera and 2 electric blankets. Now, this camera will register very slight changes in temperature, so if I just sit in front of it, I think you can see that I've got a very hot face and an extremely cold nose. Right. Well, the blanket on the left here is the one with the new wiring. The one on the right is a standard one. And round the back, we've got a fan which is blowing cold air through 2 circles which we've cut out in the framework behind the blanket. And by looking through the thermal imager, you can see what sort of effect this is producing on the blankets. We'll have a look at the standard one first. Now, I should think this is very clear. There's obviously a large circle of very cold air, and the blanket is unable to cope with it, so your feet would be freezing. Let's move over to the one with the new wiring, and I think you can see there's a significant difference. The blanket is coping really rather well, so your feet would be rather warm, wouldn't they? The blanket has reacted to the cold air by heating up. The body is given warmth just where it needs it most. And as for me, well, I can do away with these passion killers and enjoy a good night's sleep.
Well, what a lovely, cosy start to the episode, Mark, on this freezing cold winter's day, as you've just found out.
Just found out, yeah.
While we were watching that. How cold was it in London?
It's -5.
-5
on this day in 1985.
So not quite as cold as Washington DC, but still pretty damn
pretty
chilly
cold.
for London.
Yeah.
So I think that explains why we have such a sort of warm
focus
on warming.
Yeah.
Yes, this episode. But it's quite nice. It's a very sort of, Maggie's got a full set. There's like sometimes when they demonstrate things, you'll just have the thing, or it might have just been a bed. But she's got a full bedroom there, fully kitted out.
This one, yeah,
including live cat.
Including cats and 3 walls. Yeah, so bizarre. And a window with fake outdoor snow coming down.
Yeah, it really pulled out the stops there.
Yeah. Max the cat. We'll meet Max later.
I have never used an electric blanket. Have you ever used an electric blanket?
Not for 40 years. Like I think my nan had one, and I might have enjoyed that, as a child, but no, not at all.
No, because I'm fairly sure we were constantly warned about them being essentially
potential death trap.
Yeah, potential death traps. Essentially liable to burst into flames if switched on for more than 3 seconds.
I mean, the greatest fear of our childhoods was like being in a shell suit next to a 3-bar fire on top of an electric blanket.
Yeah. Well, and this demonstrates my lack of knowledge of electric blankets. Is that I didn't realise that you lay on top of an electric blanket.
What did you think you did? Oh, you thought you lay under it?
Yeah, the word blanket to me,
no.
the word blanket to me suggests that you would lay underneath it. But no, it's a thing you lay on.
Yeah, you lay on.
Apparently, actually, interestingly, in the UK and the Commonwealth, it's a thing you lay on. In America and Canada, it is what I said. It is a thing you lay
like
under.
Electric duvet.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, that's a.
Because the idea, I think, was to turn it on and like heat that space in your bed and warm up the bottom side of your duvet, and then get in, and then you can turn off your electric blanket because you've created that little pocket of air. I think that was the idea, but obviously, I would suspect most people slept with it on all night.
Yeah, well, hence them all burning to death.
Yeah, the potential death.
But so Maggie obviously gets out of her bed, and she's wearing a lovely set of pajamas there, which I think early front runners for best item of clothing.
Easily.
It immediately reminded me of Bagpuss due to the colour scheme, but then I think you actually got it closer than me. In that she looks like one of the people from the Aquafresh adverts.
Yeah.
Which I'm gonna pop in here because I just love I just love the music.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
I've been humming it all weekend.
We want blue stripes, we want white, we want the red stripes, but that's all right. As you can see, Aquafresh has all three. Aquafresh is for the family.
The red stripe helps fight plaque and protects gums. The white stripe has fluoride to fight decay. And there's a blue stripe for fresh breath. So Aquafresh gives 3-in-1 protection for your family.
Brush, brush, red stripe, blue stripe, white. Brush, brush, gurgle, gurgle, it's just right. Aquafresh has to be the only one with all three. 3-in-1 protection for your family.
Couple of interesting things about that. It was made by the same animation crew that made the Snowman, which I think you can probably...
Oh, that makes sense. Yes.
Which you can tell by looking at it.
Instant. Yeah, absolutely.
And then I also saw somebody online...
So I assume the song was by Bowie, right?
Yeah. I also saw somebody online pointing out that the parents look disturbingly similar to each other, and that possibly that child is the product of incest. But that's not... That's not been confirmed by Aquafresh themselves.
Yeah. You mean that's not very... You're just asking questions, Russ.
I am just asking questions, yeah. So Maggie has climbed out from underneath her electric blanket, and she's wearing her PJs, and then she goes through a door, and suddenly she's in the Tomorrow's World. It's like magic, Mark. It's like...
I don't know how they did it, Russ.
I don't know how they did it. It's like she's
I
stepping
don't know
out.
how she left her house and immediately was in the Tomorrow's World studio.
Yeah, it's amazing. She's in Tomorrow's World studio, and here's where she demonstrates this new electric blanket, which doesn't get cold. So the idea is that if you've got particularly cold feet, then the blanket will notice that your feet are particularly cold and get warmer in that area. And
I think what it does and what we're told it does are different things, Russ.
Oh, right. Do you think?
Yeah, I do. Because she promises an electric blanket that basically targets the cold parts of your body, and the resistance means that it lets in more heat, which implies that you get a latent temperature across the blanket, and then where your feet are cold, it gets warmer even still than the blanket itself. That's what she implies, right? That's what she implies. But the experiment that she shows us is where they have two electric blankets, a traditional one and the new one, and behind it there's a cold air fan blowing. And we can see in the traditional one, there's just a black hole where the heat is basically stopping, the cold rather is ensuring that no heat, it's just not able to warm it up. And then she points to the new one, and so you see the full outline of the infrared tubes. You can see how it's definitely warming up. And then where the hole is on the new blanket, you see a very thin line where basically it is just about putting heat in. But what I think she promised is that the lines in that section should be thicker.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's identified a cold spot.
Should be producing more heat.
It should be producing more heat. And that's not what's happening. It is producing more heat than no heat, which is what the traditional black. So the reason I'm so angry, Russ, is because I am someone who gets quite cold. I don't have an electric blanket, though my wife did buy me this rather fabulous heated cushion.
Oh, you're sitting on it now. Oh,
I'm sitting on it now, and it's absolutely brilliant. I love it.
Is it good for the old hemorrhoids?
It's good for a slightly sore back. I've never had hemorrhoids, Russ, but based on the conversation we were having before, apparently time is. I'm almost there now, right? I'll be having CPAP machines and hemorrhoids before I can shake a stick at either of those two things. It's really good. The advantage about this is safety technology has moved on in the 40 years since this episode was broadcast. Right. So this actually automatically turns off after 90 minutes, so you have to kind of put it back on again.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm getting away from the moment. I get cold. So the idea of a blanket that kind of, and I know you were saying that you get really cold feet, right? So
there are like blocks of ice at the moment. I can feel how cold they are at the moment.
Yeah. So the idea that this blanket would kind of go like, I don't want to imply that this blanket is sophisticated. I don't want to go overboard. I'm not going to imply that, it's not like it measures the temperature, but the idea that it would like, it would know that this area was cold, so it would send heat there. It's a game changer, right? It's brilliant. You'd buy it, right? And you run warm all the time. But it doesn't do that. At least in the experiment they show, I think it seems to evidence very poorly what it does or doesn't do. Because I look at that and I go like, well, it's basically struggling slightly less badly to heat up a cold patch than the previous one, when actually what the experiment should be showing is that how it warms up an area more than the surrounding area. But then the other issue I have is I often feel cold in bed. My wife will be next to me and she will complain of being too warm because I am radiating. The reason I'm cold is that I am freely giving away all my heat to apparently everyone.
You should start
me.
charging her, Mark. Start charging her.
Well, she complains, Russ. I don't understand. I don't understand why she's not grateful. Because if it was me, I'd be delighted. I'd be thrilled. She doesn't complain that much. But here's the thing: is like, so in theory, if I had this blanket, even though my feet would be freezing, because I'm giving off all this heat, that's why my feet are cold. Apparently the blanket wouldn't work anyway, because it would see this area of, it would go like, oh my God, this guy's feet are on fucking fire. We better switch off immediately. So I don't know. I just like, I suppose as I watched this several times, I just felt let down. Just let down by it's another cold night in my chilly studio apartment that I live in right here in TV Centre.
So do you
know what I mean? Am I making sense?
You were hoping that those useless blankets would self-immolate at any moment.
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I looked into blanket safety, electric blanket safety, to see whether our fears were founded on anything. Yes, yeah. And I have to say it does seem, yeah. So in 1985, it was a bit hard to dig out and find official statistics, but I found a couple of reports.
Surely you could have watched any episode of Watchdog from around that time and it would have just been chock full, right? Go on.
I found a couple of reports, and I did find one from 1985. And in 1985, the fire brigade attended 2,000 electric blanket fires and 32 people died.
Jeez.
That's quite a few, isn't it? That's like six a night, 5 or 6 a night, and that's somebody dying every 10 days. Yeah. And
that seems a lot, doesn't it?
And what's crucial here is that's fires that the fire brigade attended, because I then found a second official doc, like from the fire safety people, from 1996. That did statistics for the number of fires that weren't attended by the fire brigade in 1996, and that's 5,000.
Wow.
So that's 5,000 blanket fires that not attended by the fire brigade, but the number attended by the fire brigade have fallen massively to 816. So you have to extrapolate
out
85
right?
upwards, based on that, and 19 died in 1996. Is because apparently in 1993 onwards there was a much bigger push for electric blanket safety, so they started using materials that wouldn't burst into flame, which is obviously a great idea.
Seems like a good idea when you say it out loud, doesn't it?
Yeah, they made sure they were always fitted with thermostats so that they would then have automatic shutoffs, so they would never get too hot.
I also assumed that they were just less popular. Like they had I think as you and I was discussing in the notes, they had a bit of a bad rep, right?
Yeah,
for bursting into flames. It's like. But that and also I assume more homes had central heating and insulation and double glazing, and so for a lot of reasons you would imagine the 5,000 that didn't go to in 1996. Is that what you said? 93?
96 it was, 5,000. Yeah.
God, it must have been 10, 15,000 that didn't go to in 85. That's incredible.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Apparently they have had a bit of a resurgence recently because of obviously energy prices have gone much higher, and electric blanket. I was surprised by this because I was imagining electric things to be, I don't know,
inefficient and expensive.
Yeah, electric heaters always used to be inefficient and expensive compared to
yeah.
But actually, a modern electric blanket literally will cost you 1 or 2 pence a night to run. So, and obviously they're much safer now. And you get carbon fiber ones, which are considerably safer than you can't get electrocuted by. Because another thing is that what happens these days is that they've worked out that 99% of all electric blanket fires these days are either caused by blankets that are incredibly old, or something that somebody's bought from Alibaba, or one of those that's hasn't got any safety features.
Timu.
Yes, yeah. And actually, there were some that they found that were actually rather than burning people, they were just giving them electric shocks in bed, which
Fun.
which is fun.
Okay, pay good money for that, right?
Yeah. I actually couldn't find any that had exactly this technology that Maggie's talking about, possibly for the reasons that you outline. But what you can get, and I think would probably suit you, Mark, is you can get zonal ones. So you could get a big one for you and Josie, and you would be able to control the temperature on her side and the temperature on your side. And also you could control the temperature of the torsos and the feet separately. So you can, you've got four different temperature zones there for setting, personalizing.
You can't see, but I'm wiping a tear away from my eye, just imagining something as good as that. But the thing is that we'd almost need one that kind of kept me warm and kept her cool, because every now and then, like on a really, really chilly night, like I'll wake up and I'll have cocooned myself, curled up like the proverbial snug bug in a rug or whatever.
Yeah.
And she'll be there and like she'll be half out of the duvet with her legs flying off the just trying desperately to cool down in the middle of the night. It's incredible, really. It boggles my mind.
But they're cheap as chips. The slumber down wonderfully warm electric blanket has all of those, all mod cons I just explained.
The zonal system.
Yeah, king size one of those, 76 quid.
Gosh, that's not bad, is it?
Oh, that's a real bargain. If I wasn't permanently sweating, Mark, I'd consider getting one. Oh yes, and one last thing on this segment. Right at the very, very end, I don't know whether you noticed, Maggie says, I can take off these passion killers.
Oh, yes.
Pulls her socks off. Now I don't know whether you knew this fact, but there was a fact going around the internet. It's been going around the internet for a very long time, and I believe. Did you watch the last series of Taskmaster?
I did. It was popularised in the last series of Taskmaster.
And Emma,
yeah.
yes, Emma is Emma Siddy. Is that her name?
Emma Siddy, yeah, yes. Who was brilliant. I thought,
yes.
Great, yeah.
Claimed that
alleged
that women are more likely to achieve orgasm if they are wearing socks. And I looked into this, and it was based on a BBC News article from 2005, where they linked to a Dutch study. Of course, it's the bloody Dutch. Dirty beggars. And that Dutch study, apparently, according to the BBC, claimed that the likelihood of a woman achieving orgasm during sex increased from 50% to 80% if she was wearing socks. Now, the actual person who did that study themselves has said, the BBC misinterpreted my results. That's not true at all. And ever since then, experts have debunked it. But it's still very popular belief that's spread around the internet.
Well, so actually, I almost put in a note about this, and I thought, here was my observation about the line, because I immediately thought of Emma on Taskmaster as well. But then I was thinking, it's that phrase, isn't it? It's like, I can take these passion killers off. She removes the socks, and then have a good night's sleep. And I was thinking, like, what does that say about Keith Chegwin's lovemaking technique? That you know what I mean? It's like yeah, I couldn't. It's more like if she wanted a good night's sleep, she should be putting her passion killers on. Otherwise, she's going to be bothered for hours by the ardor of her husband. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like, oh, are they passion killers or? Yeah, I mean, I suppose I don't know. I suppose Do you see my point?
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. I've now got the phrase "Cheggers hates socks" popped in my head there. Don't know what to do with it.
Not if I have anything to do with it, Maggie.
Yeah. Look at that. Hey!
Oh, my glasses fell off as well. Look at that, a concrete pipe reduced to mere matchwood by a man of my calibre. Let's try this one. Well, they don't all work like that. In fact, this one isn't just concrete only. It has inside it steel rods which reinforce it. And it may surprise you to know that a similar principle is used over 10 million times a day inside the great British mouth. Recognise this? It's your favourite chair. For almost a century now, dentists have been fitting metal pins into teeth to anchor large fillings in place. The pins, which you can see in the X-ray, bind the tooth and the cement together, and sometimes several pins are needed in each tooth to build up a framework for the filling. But it's certainly not as easy as fixing steel rods into lumps of concrete. For a start, the tooth is very small indeed, and so the pin has to be tiny, 4 millimeters long to be precise. But for dentists, and of course the millions of us who have pins fitted each year, this novel design of a holder and a pin could well be good news, because with it, the pin can be put in quickly and automatically. Well, vastly enlarged, you can see both the units. Here's the pin down here, and the holder up here, which will be fixed to an ordinary drill. The object of the exercise is to screw the bottom half of the pin into the tooth while leaving this top half protruding as a framework for the cement. But if we look at this even larger picture, you can see the unique feature of this system. The thread on the bottom half here turns in one direction, while on the top half it turns in the opposite direction. And the holder, incidentally, grips the pin at the collar in the middle, tightly, but not too tightly, and we'll see why in just a moment. Now, since this is my very first dental operation, they've given me a pretty large tooth to work on. I'd hate to see the mouth it came from. A correct sized hole has already been drilled there, and because the holder is fixed to the pin, they both work as one unit. So to start with, the pin is driven downwards, screwing into the tooth, but when it reaches the bottom, it can go no further, so then the holder is driven on, and it automatically releases itself off the reverse thread, leaving a pin firmly attached to the tooth, ready to receive the cement. And if all that brings tears to your eyes, then let me say that it all happens in real life in just a split second. Watch this. Look at that. Magic. Not too painful.
You got any fillings, Mark?
Just the one.
Did they use pins?
I don't know. Funny, I was watching this thing and like, I don't remember them putting pins in. I remember them just putting stuff in.
I feel
metal,
like,
principally.
They look like they stick out quite a lot. I feel like you'd notice if there was like bloody great pins sticking out.
I don't think they did, but I don't know terribly well. I feel like whenever I've seen an X-ray of my teeth, not enough for a very long time, like there was no pins. It was just the lump of mercury, no doubt, or whatever. Yeah. Apparently 10 million people are walking around with these pins in their mouths, so... Yeah. What about you? Do you?
No. Yeah. Well, I'm sure. I think I've mentioned it on
Oh yes,
on here before. I didn't go to the dentist for over 20 years, and then when I did go last year, she said there's nothing wrong with your teeth.
What a dream, right?
The Great British Mouth, as Macann calls it at one point in that segment.
He does, isn't it? Yeah.
I liked the opening to this, where he's like Macann in his one of his classic grey ensembles, and he's putting on a pair of glasses to he's like a reverse Superman, isn't he? He's like he's dressing as Clark Kent in order to do his feats of strength as he's smashing up these concrete pipes with a sledgehammer. He looks like he's really enjoying himself.
Good technique, I thought.
Yeah.
Smashing it. What does he say? Look at me, or look at this, or something like that. I can't remember what he said. Yeah.
Yeah. Interestingly, actually, did you know, Mark? I don't know how I weirdly stumbled across this. Well, I was trying to see what the lettering on the concrete pipe,
MCP
on the concrete pipe. Turns out there's loads of different concrete pipe companies with the initials MCP. But while I was looking at that, I discovered that one of the UK's leading providers of precast concrete pipes is called FP Macann.
No.
What are the chances?
Wow.
What are the bloody chances, Mark?
Little side hustle. He's running a little side hustle, is he? Inspired he was. Wow, what are the chances?
I think we've had a couple of dentist segments on here. It's not as bad as a medical segment, I don't think.
No, it's not. No, and actually, as I was rewatching it there, I was thinking to myself, actually, this is one of the best demonstrated innovations we've seen in the show in terms of just like it starts at A, ends up over here, A, B, C, D. Like every segment, he's demonstrating, he's explaining to you what it is. He shows you in large form, and then he shows you in reality just how quick it is. I just think it's very simply explained to the audience, though it is, I suppose, ultimately a moderately underwhelming innovation that they're showing us, I suppose.
Yeah, because I guess we don't know enough about dentistry. We don't know.
They also don't explain what it's replacing.
Yes, that's what I mean.
in your head, I'm worried now about like a nail and a hammer, like a little, little tiny dentist hammer, a toffee hammer and a small nail. Is that what they used to do? Because this would obviously be a huge improvement. But yeah, they don't explain what it's replacing, but they do explain what this is and how it works. And it's it's an elegant solution
and a beautiful
what I don't know.
Beautiful diagram.
Beautiful. Oh my God, gorgeous. I was looking at. I think it's a screen print actually, because it looks layered and it's so beautifully done. Because it's gorgeous. You'd have it on your wall, wouldn't you?
Yeah, they've really captured the shiny metalness of it, which is not something they would normally do.
Yeah, they have. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
The way that it worked with it, the little pin had the screw of the pins,
the thread.
That's the word.
Yeah.
Was in opposite. The way it worked was in opposite directions, so it wouldn't go in too far. And I swear to God that there's IKEA furniture that does that.
Yeah, there is now. Yeah. It's such a simple idea. You drill it in, and as soon as it stops, the drill then reverses back out because the thread is the opposite at the end. It's so simple. It's so elegant. And then, he shows it to you slowly with a giant tooth, makes that bad joke. And then he shows you on how does one put this? A frighteningly accurate looking version of a tooth that looks like it's been pulled from someone. Like, is it secret? Is it safe? And then you see, like, he does it into a tooth, and it happens in like less than half a second. It's done. Yeah, very smart. Very smart.
So it
don't want one.
I mean, well, you're all right, Mark. You're lucky.
Yeah. Oh, thank God.
Because obviously, as he explained, the whole point of these, they're called dentine pins. And they invented it. They invented in the 1960s, and they're only used when there's nothing else for the dental amalgam to cling on to.
Which makes sense, right? That makes sense, yeah.
However, of course, like everything, time has moved on, technology has moved on, and these days, the amalgams and resins that they use are perfectly capable of attaching to your tooth themselves without the aid of a pin. So they don't really need to be used. And I actually found a paper from 2013, which was titled, "Are Dentine Pins Obsolete?" I will quote what this dentist concluded on his paper. It said, "Although dentine pins are still widely used in general dental practice, their use is in decline. Dentine pins are used more frequently by older practitioners than younger colleagues, the old psycho dentists."
The marathon mans of the world, right?
Yeah. And this is a very important bit. "This may be explained by the fact that many dental schools in the UK now no longer teach the placement of dentine pins." So, yeah.
Well, that would
yeah, this
presage the conclusion of the dentine use, right?
Yeah, this coupled with younger dentists being more used to bonding techniques and perhaps practicing more evidence-based dentistry accounts for the decline in dentine pin usage. In this author's own clinical practice, he has not placed a dentine pin in over 12 years. So that would have been 2001. In this regard, sales of dentine pins have been reducing. And I mean, that paper was 12 years ago. So imagine how many old dentists have died and retired since then.
Oh, yeah.
It must be few and far between now, I would have thought.
Yeah, they voted leave and then keeled over, right?
yeah. Drill in hand. But you can still buy dentine pins online. Made by a company called Stabiloc seems to be the ones that most of them are from.
Stabiloc?
Maybe Stabiloc? I don't know.
Stabilok. Oh, man, Stabilocs.
You get a pot of 100 of them for around £100. Weirdly, widely available on eBay. And I'm fascinated to know what dentists would buy their supplies on eBay.
Wow. I £100 for... Well, I suppose no one uses them, so they're probably trying to rinse the remaining market dry, right?
yeah. There's probably some people with a dentine pin fetish. Absolutely loves
probably
in their teeth.
Here's a question, though. Because they have that kind of reverse thread thing, how do you get them out?
Oh, yeah. Good point. Maybe you don't.
Probably not.
Just smash the tooth out with a hammer. Or tie a bit of thread around it, tie it around the doorknob and slam the door. That's the classic, isn't it?
Classic. I wish I'd seen that in real life. It just sounds so great to see it in real life, isn't it?
Yeah.
A tooth of mine did once come out because my dad gave me toffee And it did come out, and it's one of those things where you're like, oh, that's why you gave me toffee. It seems so odd
so
that
it
you
was a
would give me toffee.
deliberate manoeuvre.
Yeah, actually, it might have been like a chocolate eclair, the sweet rather than the... Yeah, it's like, oh, no, it actually worked. And yeah. I would not want it to come back because obviously I'm an adult and my teeth aren't being replaced. But like, there was something cool when you were a kid about that feeling of that tooth.
Fascinating process, wasn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely. The quid pro quo of that, or is the fact that obviously there's nothing more sinister than a child's skull with all those teeth lined up underneath, or neck. Yeah.
Although I still enjoy the tooth loss experience in some of my more vivid dreams. I don't know whether did you ever get the tooth falling out?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's always a...
Though it is one of those ones where I'm always able to go kind of go in my head like, well, actually, I know this is a dream, so it's not real. But yeah, but just actually remember, like, you just couldn't stop playing with it all day at school. You'd be just teasing it with your tongue, and it felt like it was kind of rocking back like 90 degrees, and you'd look at it in the mirror. It was just tiny little, amazing, so weird.
And then you get that manage to get underneath it and get that little rough, sharp bit.
Oh yeah, now you're cooking on fire gas, right? Now. Yeah.
Klar, ferdig, gå!
Norwegian inventor Emil Ask reckons he's reinvented the wheel. To test his new super efficient wheel, first I'm riding a perfectly normal bike as fast as I can on a fixed course around an Oslo park.
One minute, 42 seconds.
Now, how do you think this new wheel will help me?
It will sure help you because now you're moving with the assistance of gravity. All horizontal movement that Mother Nature created is using gravity as part of the forward movement. That means when you are walking, it's not your hip that brings you forward, it's your foot. You lift your heel up, let's say 2 inches, and you lean forward and gravity is bringing you 2 feet ahead.
Right.
In one step.
Yeah, but then on a bike you can still lean forward, can't you?
Yes, you can lean forward, but still your weight goes down to the shaft, and that's in the center position of the wheel. Now, you want to get your weight in a forward position on the wheel, and then you have to have the center here, and that's floating inside that ring.
Right.
You have nails in here, and you have a hole that's slightly bigger than the nails. And that does that when you pull on the chain, you bring a part of your weight from the shaft is transferred over to that forward position.
So in effect, the wheel itself is leaning forward?
Correct, but only by the force you put on your pedals.
Right. Okay, well, let's give it a go. I sort of think I see how it might work, but I certainly have my doubts that it's going to let me ride any faster.
Are you ready to go again,
I am.
Maggie?
Yep.
Ready, steady, go.
1 minute 42 to beat, and it doesn't feel any easier. If this works, I'll eat my hat. I'm not changing gear at all, and the course is identical, so this should be a reasonably fair test.
1 minute 25. This is 17 seconds faster. So that is about 15% better time that you made on this
Is that
second
so?
two.
Because it still felt like hard work.
Oh yes, it's hard to step on this as under the normal wheel, but you give all your energy, but the result is you make better time.
Right. Well, I know our test wasn't particularly scientific, but it's still given me something to think about.
Well, Mark, Norway is not a country that I would consider or normally associate with the phrase value for money. But I feel like, as far as Tomorrow's World is concerned, they have absolutely got full VFM from the country of Norway, haven't
they just? Makes you proud, right?
Yeah. This is the 4th segment we've seen, which we're presuming was filmed on one single trip to Norway.
Has to be, yeah.
Because it's always Maggie, isn't it? Isn't it always Maggie?
Yeah,
it's always Maggie.
Yep.
And she's always it's always subtitled TW Norway, and it's always around 1985, 1984. Yeah, so previously we've seen we saw the first time we saw Maggie setting fire to a car.
It's about oil rigs, really.
Yes, to the music of Sirius by the Alan Parsons Project. And then in episode 21 we saw some Norwegian inventor with a self-propelling boat.
Another Norwegian mad lad.
Yes, yeah. And then actually fairly recently, just a few episodes ago, we saw that lovely segment about Norwegian houses and architecture.
Yeah, that was cool. Yes,
and now she's back. She's back again this episode. A lighter, sort of less interesting segment because it's about another bloody advance in the bike world. We get a lot of pointless bike.
Yeah, we do, and like it's almost the point where it's like I was kind of thinking, I can't wait for Russell to tell me what happened, and I think like all I have to do is look outside my effing window and see that bikes have barely changed in 60 years to know that. I don't think I need to wait for Russell to pass judgment on this one.
They absolutely perfected bikes, and I mean, apart from making them of lighter materials.
Yeah, its materials have changed, right?
Yes,
not the shape of the style.
Yes, yeah. The bike is good as it is. They need to stop trying to throw these pointless advances because they never seem to go anywhere. This one in particular, I could not find anything about it at all.
I'm not shocked.
Yeah, I couldn't find. We've got this inventor here. It feels like his name is Emil Ask. Do you think that's what his name was? Emil Ask?
That's what I kind of wrote down, Emil Ask.
Yeah.
But I
searched for variations of his name.
I'm sure you did. And nothing?
No. I looked up the type of bike that Maggie is riding, and it is indeed a Norwegian type of bike. It's called a DBS, which stands for Den Beste Sykkel. Which have a guess what that translates as?
The best cycle?
The best bike, yes. Yeah. Very modest company name, that, isn't it?
Wow. How unabashed of them.
Yeah. So, as far as this bicycle can go, I will have to just throw it open to the listeners. I know, obviously, long-term listener and friend of the show, Graham Rayburn, is a keen cyclist. So maybe if you have a look at this on the YouTube, Graham, and see whether you've ever seen anything like this, get back to us. It's probably our best bet.
Yeah, that'd be really good.
But other things, I mean, we can still look at other things in this segment, Mark. Obviously, the inventor himself looked like a slim, Scandi Patrick Moore, didn't he?
He did, didn't he?
That was fun.
With the similar intonation to kind of giving out, secrets to, Super Mario World, level 4-2 or whatever. Yeah, it was very odd, very peculiar approach he had.
Yeah. And we also had probably the only segment that was backed by music as well, this episode. It's called Agile N. The piece of music is by Leo Kotka. Have you ever heard of Leo Kotka?
I have not heard of Leo Kotka.
I had not heard of Leo Kotka. He's been going for years, Mark. He's been going since the 60s. He's actually American. He's an American acoustic guitarist from Athens, Georgia.
That's where REM are from.
Yeah. But his parents travelled around so much that he grew up in 12 different states. He's a well-travelled man. But his whole thing is finger picking, Mark. You may have noticed from that tune there.
I did, yeah.
Finger picking good music. And quite often plays a 12-string guitar.
Wow.
That's a lot. That is a lot of strings for a guitar, isn't it?
That's twice as many as most guitars, Russ.
Well, I know that's twice as many as Bryan Adams, that's for sure, because as we all know, he bought his first real 6-string back in the summer of '69. So, yeah. So that's a double of the Adams attempt. Most of his songs are just instrumental, but when he does occasionally sing, he uses a unusual baritone voice that he self-describes as sounding like geese farts on a muggy day. So it's an interesting image, isn't it? Yeah.
And he doesn't have a PR person working for him, right?
He seems to be one of those people that you never heard of, but has very keen fans. There's like those niche people.
Yeah.
And the only other interesting thing I found out about him is he once released a song called Vaseline Machine Gun, which I think is an excellent name for a song.
That's a great name for a song.
Yeah. But so Maggie here is cycling around this park, testing out this bike wheel that we don't know anything about.
Yeah, I've been to that park in Oslo. It's very nice.
Oh, have you been to it? So you do know,
I have.
you know that it's Frogner Park.
I couldn't remember the name of it, but myself and JC have been there. It was very lovely. It was a lovely August day in Oslo, and it was a nice, very pleasant place to be. Though, as I said, maybe at the end of the note, because we see Maggie cycling around the park again later on. There's no other cyclists in that park, Russ.
No.
I seriously suspect that cycling is not allowed in that park.
And Maggie's absolutely
It's very near the Royal Palace in Oslo. It's very nice.
Yeah, well, it's
breaking all the rules.
It is the most popular tourist attraction in Norway. 1 to 2 million visitors a year, Mark. What? And it houses. Did you look around the sculptures?
We did. They're very peculiar. I recognise them. You added the pictures in later.
Yes.
It's like, I do. I have seen these. Yeah.
It's called the Vigeland installation after Gustav Vigeland. And it's the world's largest sculpture park made by a single artist. There's 212 bronze and granite sculptures, around 80 acres. So he must have been absolutely knocking them out.
I mean, some of the pictures here you definitely think like, well, that was made by AI, right?
Well, the ones that I've put at the bottom of the doc, I chose because I was looking through them. I thought, I think Vigeland might have had an issue with children.
He's not happy with them.
He's got one called the Angry Boy. It's just a screaming child. Then there's another
stamping his foot.
Then there's another one of a naked woman, presumably a mother, with 2 children riding on her back with like reins in her mouth. And then,
a bit unpleasant.
And then the third one is a stark naked man who appears to be fighting off babies who are like launching themselves at him. He's like booting one, and then he's
beating one,
and then he's got like 3 others over his shoulders. Yeah,
but it's like so he's booting one with his right leg. He has bashed off 2 with his flailing right arm. But he's not noticed the surprise attack from the person coming in behind his left arm.
Yeah. It's like a scene from some sort of, I don't know, horror film. I imagine them throwing themselves at him like a Chucky doll. The one interesting thing about Vigeland, the sculptor, is that he designed the Nobel Peace Prize medal, Mark.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There's been some suggestions that he might have been a bit of a Nazi. Some of the people have interpreted some of these sculptures as being a bit Nazi-ish. But I don't, because it's like, I think it's mostly people doing like sport and
oh, okay,
family.
yeah.
They kind of like, they reckon it's kind of fascist imagery, but there's no evidence of that really, apart from just people interpreting his sculpting, and the fact that his real first name is Adolf.
Okay, that's all the evidence I need.
Yes, yeah. And the thing, as you said, in the end credits, we see Maggie cycling through the park a bit more. And the thing she's cycling towards is the most popular part of the park, which is called the monolith, Mark.
Gosh.
Everyone loves a monolith, don't they?
Everyone loves a monolith.
Yeah. But yeah, as far as the bike goes, which, I mean, what's interesting here is that Maggie is incredibly dubious about it throughout the segment, isn't she? She is. She said she'd eat her hat if it works, and seems unconvinced.
She did.
Yes. But it does appear... I mean, well, assuming that old Emil isn't doctoring the timings, it does appear that it does work. She does actually ride around the park slightly faster using this fancy new wheel.
Yep.
I did not understand Emil's explanation of how the wheel works at all. I think it's something about there being more forward force than down force or something like that.
I could have
done with a diagram.
It's one of those things where, like, I understood what he meant, but I don't know if I can explain. Do you know when you hear something, you're like, I know what they mean, and I think it makes sense. It makes sense in my head, but I can't tell you how it works. But it's that idea that because these weights, so the rear tire, the rear wheel has within it a second circle, I suppose, around the bit that sticks out. I don't know what the fuck. So instead of the spokes going all the way to the center, they stop at this circle that kind of fits inside the wheel. And within that, then, he's attached these little weights that kind of pivot. And I think the idea is that as you spin the wheel, because these weights flip forward, the gravity of the action of those weights flipping forward helps ease the propulsion of the wheel,
right,
so that you're putting in slightly less effort to do the same, or if you prefer, the amount of effort you're putting in is getting a slightly higher result. That's how I think he was, and that's what he was talking about the footstep things, where it's like, it is the gravity of you sticking your leg out forward that pulls you down, and then, you put your leg out, and then it's the gravity affecting your leg that kind of pulls your leg down, which means that you pivot forward, and that is what propels you when you're walking, because you're constantly doing that. And he was saying that's what this wheel is doing. These little weights that are off center, because they flip forward as they pass over the top of the wheel, they are constantly driving a little bit of the wheel going forward. But it's one of those things where I was thinking, like, but because it's in a circle, are they not also kind of flipping back when they, it's like, are they not, it's almost like, if this works, doesn't it just create a perpetual engine? Like at some point you don't need to cycle anymore. That's the bit I understood what he was talking about, but it was one of those things where I was thinking, like, but this just feels like the kind of thing you imagine. It's a bit like how people imagine that if you attach, if you get like a 10-foot pole and put a magnet in front of your car, and your car has metal in the front, it'll somehow pull you forward. It's like, on paper that works. Like, you can see how that would work, because it doesn't in reality. It kind of fits into that category for me.
Yeah, or if you.
But again, we need Graham to weigh in on this one.
If you strap buttered toast to the back of a cat and drop it, it would end up just rotating
forever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, who knows? Any guess? Not just Graham. Anybody who knows anything about bicycles, please write in.
Or indeed the principles that Neil Ask is talking about.
Like Newtonian physics. Anything. Better than us at this, I'm sure. Let us know. Tomorrow's World Audit Time.
I mean, normally if we don't know something, we just pretend we do, and none of you idiots bother writing in to tell us otherwise. But on this one, we definitely don't know what we're talking about.
Yes, yeah. Well, let's move on to something that are absolutely, definitely all over, Mark, and that's quantum physics.
Look up into a clear night sky and you see nothing but the odd planet and lots of stars. Or to put it another way, stars and lots of nothing. And that can't be right, because cosmologists say that for the universe to be arranged in the way it is, for the planets, stars and galaxies to hang together the way they do, there should be 100 times more matter than we can see. So, assuming that's right, what and where is all this missing matter? Well, because astronomical physics can be a bit complicated, let's make life easier and talk about nuclear physics instead. Now, at the centre of each atom is a nucleus made up of neutrons, say they're the green particles, they've got no charge, and protons, the red things, which are positively charged. Now, the positive charge of the protons makes them repel each other, and that's why there's a limit to the size of any nucleus. Try to put too many protons together, though, and that repulsion for each other reaches a stage where they effectively say, look, lads, enough is enough, and the whole thing breaks up in a nuclear explosion. But imagine what would happen if you got rid of that positive charge in the protons to leave no charge at all. There'd be nothing then to stop more and more of them getting together to form an immense solid mass so dense that a lump the size of a sugar cube would weigh 1 million tons. Now, scatter enough of that around the universe and your missing matter problem would be solved. Sounds like a rather fanciful idea? Well, an American physicist, Ed Whittam of Princeton University, has suggested how it could happen. If you go a stage further still and look at what protons are made of. Well, this is our model of a proton, subdivided into particles called quarks. Up quarks, down quarks. Now, to make a proton, you need 2 up quarks, 1 down quark. Up is positive, down is negative. So the proton, overall, is positive. Now, what Whittam says is that if you lose one of the up quarks in the proton and substitute it with a third type of quark called a strange quark, which carries a negative charge, then the charges cancel each other out, and the proton becomes neutral. And the resulting particles should be stable. Stable enough to mean that if you have lots of these things together in one place, they won't do anything antisocial like blow up. And Professor Whittam believes that it's possible that enough of this strange matter exists to account for the missing 99% of the universe. But if there's so much of it out there, why can't we see it? Well, the answer is that strange matter is very dense indeed. So dense, in fact, that the only time there's likely to have been enough energy around to make it is during the Big Bang, when the universe was formed. Since then, countless tiny lumps have become scattered throughout space, and witness calculated that although pieces the size of a pinhead arrive here on Earth every year or so, a lump this size would only appear every few 100 million years. Mind you, if this was the real thing, I'd have no hand, and there'd be a hole in the floor all the way to Australia.
Strange matter, Mark. What's the strangest matter you've ever encountered?
Ooh, gosh. I always thought that one at school, that's, the one where if you gently push it, you can kind of put your finger through it.
Oh,
if you
yes.
slap it. It just, it's completely resistant.
Yes.
Yeah.
A non-Newtonian fluid, I think that's called.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yes.
And it was just like baking soda and water or whatever. But yeah, that's the strangest massive. Why? What about you, Russ? Because I think I've picked the Family Fortunes top one there. So top answer. What have you got?
I'm going to say, I think I've seen some really weird, like fungus stuff before in nature.
That's gross.
Yeah, where I've looked at that and gone,
yeah, that's strange.
That's a strange consistency.
Oh, hard pass. That's why I stick to stick to sissies. Strange people, I can understand. Strange matter? No.
Well, obviously, this is very easy to understand, Mark, because all this is a bit of cheeky quantum physics from Kieran here.
A theory, right? Theoretical.
A theory. It's another one of those. I think we've had it before, where you're watching it, you go, "This is surely to do with dark matter," but they don't mention dark matter.
Yeah.
Obviously, dark matter being the idea that every calculation of the universe suggests that it weighs more than anything than what we can see. So where is all of the extra mass coming from? And so and then there's various speculations as to what that dark matter is made out of. And obviously this one here, this suggestion is something they've given the even better name of as strange matter.
Quite like that.
And Kieran does his best to describe it. Standing in front of the blue screen, the blue screen of the cosmos that we've seen Michael Rodd standing in front of in previous episodes.
Yeah.
So we get to see atoms represented by bursting balloons and I don't know what those balls are, some sort of coloured balls. And then some photos.
Funnily enough, I thought they might have been squash balls. They had that kind of rubbery quality to them. Yeah.
Yeah. And then some lovely photos of outer space. And also we learned about a man called Ed Witten.
Yeah.
I thought, who's that? Who's Ed Witten? Is he important? Turns out he's massively important, Mark. Really clever bloke. We can trust his theory a bit more, Mark. He's a world-renowned theoretical physicist, and he works in all sorts of different fields. Things like M theory, string theory, topological quantum field theory, quantum gravity, supersymmetric quantum field theories. And he's so clever that some of his physics ideas have been adopted by pure mathematicians because they're that clever. And they've gone, you've improved math. To the point he won the Fields Medal for mathematics because he actually managed to do something that mathematicians had never thought of doing. And he once at a 1990 cosmology conference, he was voted as the smartest living physicist. So
that's a claim, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Because they're all pretty smart, I think, Mark. Pretty smart people.
Yeah, I think even the idiots are smart, right?
Yeah.
But don't worry, Russ. This is our legacy.
Yeah, he hasn't got a podcast. Nah.
Yeah.
I don't think he has. I'm not checked. He might do. But yeah, I mean, so the thing is, obviously, when you're watching these things, you think, well, the problem is this is all theory, so it's not. It's slightly outside the remit, unless, of course, in the intervening time, they've literally discovered a big chunk of strange matter. It's more of it's just a theory, isn't it? Like a lot of these physics things. And obviously, as Kieran points out, it says at the end there, if a lump of strange matter the size of a cricket ball hit the Earth, it would go straight through to Australia. I was wondering, was the Ashes on at this time? But it's not. I thought maybe it was some sort of cricket reference, but it wasn't. It was just random. But I was suggesting that he says that this matter, a lump the size of a sugar cube would weigh 1 million tons. So I would suggest that if a lump the size of a cricket ball hit the Earth, it would just at least split the Earth in half. just obliterate it.
I don't think it would be quite as simple as he made out.
yeah. But so, obviously, I got looked into what the current idea of strange matter is, and actually, pretty interesting stuff, Mark. Pretty interesting. So it's still theoretical. They've not found any of it, but we should thank.
So strange matter is not a different phrase for dark matter. It is its own thing.
It is a potential. So the thing with dark matter is that no one knows what it is, and there's potential candidates for what it could be. And strange matter is a candidate for dark matter. But we should absolutely cross our fingers and hope to God that it isn't, because it is probably theoretically one of the most dangerous substances in the universe.
How fun!
So they reckon. So as Kieran explained here, it's the idea that the proton, the quarks, which make up the protons in an atom, they're below. They're the building blocks of atoms, basically. And it's the idea that they swap out one of the up quarks for what's called a strange quark. And strange quarks are, as the name suggests, behave quite unusually. But you don't see them all that much. They reckon that the only way that strange matter could be made is if you, as Kieran said, either at the beginning of the universe, the Big Bang, or in the core of a neutron star, Mark. How exciting is that? Now,
that's really exciting.
A neutron star is what happens if a star collapses and it doesn't turn into a large star collapses, it doesn't turn into a black hole, then it will turn into a neutron star. And what you have is you'll have a star which was around 25 times the size of our sun. It will contract down to around 10 kilometers across. So
that seems quite a shrink.
Yeah. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of energy and pressure inside that. And those are the conditions that you need, theoretically, for this to happen. Because what you actually need to do is you need to essentially melt atoms themselves. You need to melt them down into their constituent quarks, so that the star would just be a sea of quarks with no actual atomic structure at all. And if that happens, then you could theoretically end up with strange matter. But the big dangerous thing with strange matter, which Kieran doesn't touch on here, is that it's probably contagious. So if a lump of strange matter was to neutron star exploded and this lump of matter came and it hit the Earth or touched the Earth, it would then cause the Earth to turn into strange matter, which would destroy everything on Earth.
Which is fun.
In an instant.
But Kieran posits the idea that a pinprick size lands on the Earth every couple of years.
No, he's wrong, because if that happened, then we would all be dead. Everything the whole Earth would have converted into strange matter, and we'd all be gone. Yeah. So it's like it's super. This is obviously still theory, but it's super stable. So when it touches, it has this weird property that when it touches normal matter looks at it and goes, "Oh, you're more stable than me. I'm going to turn into you." And so it does. But then that causes, the whole it to no longer be normal matter. So, we wouldn't be able to survive if we were made of strange matter.
So the loss of his hand would be the least he'd be worried about.
Yes, yeah.
And pretty soon he wouldn't be worrying about anything.
No, not at all. No. And what's fun is these lumps of strange matter, they've given them the name strangelets, which I think is a weirdly cute name for something which is quite as dangerous as that. But I didn't realise it, but it's very popular with sci-fi writers. If they a lot of sci-fi books and films and things, if they want to herald the apocalypse, quite often it'll be involving the release of strange matter from like a particle accelerator or something like that.
I assume this must be hard sci-fi, because I don't feel like I've ever come across this concept before.
There was apparently the BBC made a thing for the National Geographic Channel in the early 2000s where they posited 4 or 5 different ways that the Armageddon could come about.
Mm-hmm.
And, the usual ones, asteroid hitting the Earth or massive climate change or something like that. And the final one was the idea of strange matter escaping from a particle accelerator and destroying the world. And that apparently was the only one that they said human beings would be unable to survive in any way, shape, or form. And
Brill.
Yeah. So dangerous stuff, Mark. So keep your eyes peeled for that.
Keep them peeled.
And whatever you do, don't pick it up and put it in your pocket.
Like, don't return to fireworks, right?
Exactly. Yes. Leave well alone.
It's ever so warm inside here now. But of course, there is another disadvantage. When you get wrapped up like this in your electric blanket, it makes the moment of stepping out onto your cold carpet, even worse. And I'm afraid it doesn't matter how good your central heating is, you can't stop hot air rising. So whilst the middle of your room might be comfortably warm, just above your radiators it's wastefully hot, and the area at carpet level remains decidedly chilly. Now, if the same amount of heat given out by your radiator came instead from the whole floor, well, you might be better off. I mean, the Romans had worked that one out with their underfloor heating, but it was dreadfully expensive, even with slave labour, and it took days to heat up and days to cool down. So fires under the floorboards aren't really practical in this day and age, and even the more up-to-date systems with buried pipes and cables have had similar drawbacks. So you might be intrigued if you take a look through our thermal imager at this floor. Now, I assure you that we haven't dug up Studio 6 and installed underfloor heating, but as you can see, the floor is very warm, and my feet are still very cold. So what's going on? Well, this might look like an ordinary carpet, and that's because it is one. The clue lies just underneath, where there's a network of wires gently warming the room. The principle is similar to the electric blanket, and a group in Israel has used the same material which coats non-stick frying pans to create an extremely tough layer of insulation around each wire, so it's well up to normal wear and tear. And having this insulating underlay means that the room is warm where you need it to be. You've also got a thermostat here, so you can control the heat in the usual way. Mind you, one thing you do have to check is that you've got the right sort of carpet on top, because if you're using one like this with the rubber backing, I'm afraid that won't do because it won't allow the heat to rise up. But say you don't feel like laying a new carpet. Maybe you'd prefer to go for a self-contained electric mat. By the way, this mat uses no more electricity than a light bulb. Well, I thought there's just one way to put this to the test. I'll see what Max thinks of it. Is Max still around? Hello, Max. What do you think of that mat? Yep. I think he's got the right idea. On a night like tonight, it's the only place to be. Oh,
Max is dead now.
What did you just say?
Max is dead now.
How do you know, Mark?
You're right, Russ. I don't. How presumptuous of me.
Well, to be fair, he probably died in a horrific fire due to the incredible dangerousness of these electric carpets. Electric carpets to me sounds like the name of a band, don't you think, or some sort of music acts. Ladies and gentlemen, the electric carpets. We talked about Maggie getting value for money earlier, and she's getting value for money out of this set and infrared camera, isn't she? She's essentially shown us the same thing twice.
Same thing, thrice. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Value for money. And that annoying high-pitched scream that thermal imaging camera gives out.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, I wonder why it's doing that. Do you think it's that, or do you think it's the electric carpet?
No, I think it's the camera. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's just an electric blanket that you can put underneath your rug. That is it, isn't it? I mean, the only excitement comes from the fact that we see Max the cat in his...
They've rebadged you, you fool.
Max seems similarly unimpressed by the whole situation, by immediately just striding past her and jumping into it. Quite fat, Max, do you think? Or do you think fat or just furry?
Furry, no furry. But it does look like an older cat, I think.
Yeah. Giving this segment short shrift, I think.
Indeed.
Yes, yeah. Two things. I enjoyed the fact that Maggie said that it was coated in the same material that they coat non-stick frying pans in, thus avoiding saying the word Teflon, because this is, of course, the BBC, Mark. You cannot possibly say the word Teflon.
They wouldn't dare.
No, because people would be rushing out to non-stick everything immediately if they did that. And also, I was surprised the one thing that surprised me, Mark, when I thought this did look like the world's biggest fire hazard and wouldn't possibly exist. But it turns out I was completely wrong, Mark, and that half the websites on the internet are trying to sell me things to put underneath my carpets and laminate flooring to heat them up that are basically just this. I didn't know it existed, Mark.
No.
I didn't know it existed. I knew underfloor heating existed. Obviously, my mum has underfloor heating. Very effective it is too. I do think it's weird when you put something down on the floor and then when you pick it up it's warm, which takes some getting used to. But it is one of the few places in the world where my feet don't get cold. But I always whenever I've seen underfloor heating, I've always pictured it as being a complex series of pipe work and stuff buried in concrete and all that malarkey.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
No, turns out, Mark, you can just buy the rolls of the stuff these days. Just roll it out honestly, just roll it out onto your carpet, and plug it in. Done. Job done. It's a real eye opener, Mark, because I'm considering ripping out all of my central heating right away, Mark, and switching to electric.
Who needs it?
Switching to electric carpets.
Why stop there? Why not electric wallpaper? Let's just go all in, big guy.
Yeah, another good name for a band, electric wallpaper. Yeah. So genuinely surprised by that. Obviously, they're probably slightly better. They seem to come in more sturdy. Seem to be more sturdy these days. It seems like they're made of like foil coating and carbon fibre and things like that. But just still very much the same principle.
No, I was just thinking no, that's cozy. But then I suppose there is the part of me thinking they have just shown us the same thing 3 times though.
Yes, yeah. But if you want to get a rug buddy, Mark.
Yeah, I'd love to get. I mean, just for the name alone, I'm in.
The smallest one they do, 50 by 100 centimetres, 134 quid. Or the biggest one they do, 177 by 251 centimetres, £349. So you heat your room for £349. Obviously, plus the electricity.
Plus the operation cost of it, yeah. And that's not bad. I suppose my only concern, because when I was watching her, it's like, do you have to, your furniture is going to sit in that, right? So, your bed legs.
Yeah.
And, and some bed legs are nice and broad, right? So that they spread the weight, but some aren't. Yeah. And, I don't know, it just feels like that could possibly be a potential death threat.
Especially if they're made of metal.
Yes, exactly. Absolutely.
Unlike the blankets, I could not find any statistics on the number of deaths involving electric carpets during the 80s and 90s.
Oh my God. Just the phrase electric carpets it feels chilling, right? It just feels frightening.
You step out of the shower, step on it.
Oh my God. Please don't carpet your bathrooms, everyone.
It's like one of those computer game levels where the floor is inexplicably electrified.
Oh, yeah.
Short shrift indeed.
No. If you're listening, Max, call in.
Yeah.
Meow.
Hello, it's the Weather Centre here. We've recorded 15 millimetres in the last 24 hours. I'm afraid there's more on the way.
For the Thames Water Authority, that call from the London Weather Centre is the signal for them to start work. Their computer predicts that tonight the Thames will get more than a harmless dose of rainwater. As the gutters take the water from our streets, the sewers below start to fill. And when there's more rain than they can deal with, untreated sewage goes straight into the Thames, despite this treatment plant in Beckton, the 3rd largest in the world, which was rebuilt to help clean up the Thames.
It deals with over 200 million gallons of sewage a day. But like the proverbial straw, a rainstorm can break the system's back. It takes only 3 centimetres of rainfall in 24 hours to quadruple the flow of sewage. And then the underground sewers in the London area can't cope, and they flow out into the river, from here all the way up to Hammersmith.
Sewage bacteria use oxygen dissolved in the river, upsetting the delicate balance of life and killing the fish. Unfortunately, London's 51 emergency overflows are active far too often. Last September's massive storms sent 3 million tonnes of sewage into the river. And the problem's made worse because the deoxygenated water doesn't just mix with the fresh water. It forms a dead area, a plug of water that moves with the tides. According to fishermen, objects floating in the river, like the large areas of dead water, stay together as they're moved by the tide, 4.5 miles downriver, 4 miles up, day after day. In fact, it would take these objects 2.5 months to reach the sea, and over a week just to get past this fisherman. So the Thames Water Authority invested in a special kind of boat designed to get rid of the area of dead water. A boat which can follow it as it moves destructively up and down the river. They called it the Thames Bubbler.
The solution is deceptively simple. If you want to keep fish alive with the water aerated, bubble it. Now that's easy in a tank this size, but getting enough oxygen dissolved to affect the River Thames is another matter. For a start, using air is extremely inefficient. So first, you've got to concentrate the oxygen, and that's done in the bowels of the bubbler itself. Fresh air is only 20% oxygen, the rest is mainly nitrogen. This substance, zeolite, is therefore used to absorb the nitrogen and allow the oxygen to pass through. And all that goes on in these huge tanks. The oxygen is then dissolved in this narrow pipe, where the mixture is under high pressure. But we all know what happens when you've got liquid and gas. The pressure's released.
The bubbles burst. The precious oxygen is lost.
But as fish fanciers know, you get much better oxygen absorption if the bubbles are small. That's why they use an air stone.
But even so, most of the oxygen is wasted through bubbles breaking the water's surface. But look carefully at the water behind the boat. Very few bubbles break its surface. The bubbler, in fact, is misnamed. It produces 10 tons of oxygen every day, and it's thought to lose less than 1/5 of that. Because at the end of the pipes there are nozzles, which act as very efficient air stones, breaking the oxygen up into microscopic bubbles and shooting it out with such force that the gas is instantaneously mixed and dissolved in the river's murky water. The technique is very effective. A sample taken by Thames Water's monitoring launch from in front of the bubbler can measure oxygen levels as low as 15%. But behind the bubbler, the oxygen level in the sample has been increased to 30%. And that difference is all that's needed. It can mean life or death for the fish in this river, which now claim to be the fastest growing section of the City of London's population.
Can't believe it, Mark. Can't believe that back in 1985, the water companies were just letting raw sewage flow into the rivers like that during rainstorms. I mean, how backwards and primitive they must have been back then.
We truly live in the promised times. All those sacrifices previous generations made, they've all played out to our benefit.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say, Mark, presuming that the bubbler is as effective as Judith says, surely these days there should be bubblers left, right and centre. There should be a bubbler on every bloody river in Britain, shouldn't there? Bubblers driving around the coast.
Do you know what, Russ? It's a fair point. I've not noticed them, so I've got my fears about what you're going to say next. Then,
yeah. Should we, maybe we should put all our money in bubblers, Mark? Start churning them out. This is nice to see the Ted. Always nice to see London in the past.
Very much so.
Don't see a huge amount of it. We're obviously mostly on the Thames here. We
definitely bits I recognise.
Yes, yeah. And then we see some insane fishermen. We're told.
What a goddamn psychopath! Yeah, unbelievable.
We're told in no uncertain terms that this river is absolutely swimming in feces, and then there's a bloke fishing in it. I mean, is he fishing?
He's
for
not in
turds?
it, but he's not in it up to his neck or anything. But like he's his rod is. Yeah.
Maybe he's a
want?
jobby fisherman. Maybe he's fishing for the biggest jobby he can find.
Or bottles of Teachers.
Yes, yeah. Terrible product placement of the Teachers whiskey there floating in the water.
To be fair, it's also a terrible product placement for Teachers. It's like, I can't imagine you'd be happy with that.
Yeah. But no, I didn't know anything. I didn't know that. I don't think I've ever seen. Have you ever seen the Thames Bubbler in action, Mark? Ever seen it chug past while you standing on London Bridge or anything?
I have no doubt I have seen kind of Thames-related equipment up and down the river, but I also have no doubt that I have paid zero attention to whatever the hell they are. So I don't know. I may have seen this 100 times in my life, but I couldn't tell you this a single time I've ever seen. To be fair, if something went by, it's called the Thames Bubbler. You would Google it.
Yes, yeah. It's a great name. I love that. It's something about the word.
It's a great name.
Bubbler.
Yeah,
Bubbler.
I like the way Judith pronounced it as well. Is very enjoyable. Bubbler.
Yeah, and there's a nice bit where she almost introduces the catchphrase "bubble it" as well.
Bubble it. Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's a nice bit of filming. This nicely filmed piece. There's a couple of bits that we liked. There's
couple of good bits of business. Yep.
There's a bit where you're watching the boat chugging along, and then suddenly we're the fish tank hoves into view.
Yeah, the camera pans, and then the fish tank is in the foreground. Nice, good bit of business.
And then my favourite bit is the bit where she's talking. Yep. She's on the deck of the bubbler. She's chatting to us. And then suddenly, mid-sentence, she's suddenly, as she says, in the bowels of the bubbler. And she completes her sentence. A very perfectly timed little cut.
It's very well
there.
done. Yeah, it's beautifully edited.
Yes, yeah. I was a little bit disappointed that it was a little bit louder down there in the bowels of the bubbler, because I would have liked her to be speaking over a louder sound. But unfortunately...
God, I hadn't thought about that, because it was so quiet. I didn't even think about it.
Whisper quiet on board the bubbler.
Yeah, whisper quiet, yeah.
But yeah, it's essentially a fish health segment. We actually surprisingly large number of fish health segments over there.
There's been
years,
water treatment rather than fish health, but you're not wrong.
But yeah, I mean, the piece itself.
Oh yeah, because we've had Hawaii, we've had Shanghai, and now London. Yeah, that's true. There's at least 3.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to work. I mean, the piece itself seems pretty interesting. I was very excited when I did look into the Thames Bubbler to find out there was actually a lot of bubbler info on the line, Mark. You were surprised by how much bubbler, including there's websites where you can track. If you type in the name of a ship, it will tell you exactly where it currently is. Mm-hmm. So I was able to see where it was on the Thames.
So it's still going, the Thames Bubbler?
Well, it's parked up. It's still there. It's actually parked up, Mark, because, well, first things first. This Thames Bubbler that Judith has here is the original Thames Bubbler. And if I don't really noticed, it's not actually a boat. It's like a floating
No, it's
thing,
like a caravan that's being pulled behind.
Being towed by a tug.
Yeah.
That, in 1988, got replaced by a proper Thames Bubbler, which I've got to put a picture of at the bottom of the document.
Yeah, I saw that.
A purpose-built Thames Bubbler, much more sleek, cool looking. You could go on your holidays and that, couldn't you?
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, so I found an explanation for that on shipnostalgia.com. It says, the first Thames Bubbler was a converted Thames lighter towed by a tug. The present vessel was ordered to be built because there was a sag in the tideway, don't know what that means, some sort of water thing, and fish were floating dead outside the Houses of Parliament. And the then PM, Mrs. M. Thatcher, was asking a lot of questions. All stops were pulled out, and Thames Water decided to build a new vessel. I took her under trials on the Mersey, and then she was towed down to London. Very manoeuvrable but slow, a very expensive vessel to run.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Gosh.
And they in fact built 2. They built a sister ship called the Vitality.
The Doubler.
No, it's not. Unfortunately, not the Bubbler. That'd be good. Yeah, the Vitality, which is an identical sister ship. And they've both been chugging up and down the Thames whenever oxygen levels get too low. It's not like a constant thing. They would only go out whenever oxygen levels get too low.
Well, you say that. It wasn't a constant thing, but perhaps nowadays it is. Yeah.
But there was 5 bubbler controllers, as they were called. And I read an article written by one on the Environment Agency website And he was chatting about how it only gets used certain times. The last time it was used majorly was in 2022 when it was hot weather caused a lot of the oxygen to come out of the water, and they had to run it for 250.
Oh, that's when it got to 40 degrees.
Yes, they had to run it for 215 hours. I like the idea of them maybe running it too much and the river becoming fizzy. That'd be fun, wouldn't it? I don't think that's ever happened. Yeah. But they each can inject 30 tons of oxygen into the Thames per day, and they cost £250,000 a year to run. One of the interesting things, Mark, is that the gas analyzer on there. This is only interesting to us because of where we're from. The gas analyzer on there is a Servomex Servotough Oxy 1800, and it's manufactured in the town of Crowborough, Mark.
Wow.
Yes, so some of our...
Gosh.
I know we have a couple of listeners from Crowborough, so they'll be excited to learn that the Bubbler has an alumnus on board it. But, the thing is that you'll know about this, Mark, because you still live in London.
I do. It's true.
The Thames Tideway Tunnel, or as it's called, London's super sewer, is essentially rendering the bubblers obsolete.
Yes.
Because the super sewer, the whole thing of it is it's meant to capture all of this runoff before it gets into the Thames. So
that's my understanding.
So it's almost completely, it's not fully online yet. In December, they reported that 12 out of the 21 connection points for this super sewer were online, and there was a big blast of heavy rain, and it managed to capture 850,000 tonnes of sewage in a 24-hour period that would otherwise have flowed into the Thames, which is pretty impressive, isn't it?
That is pretty impressive. What happens to it then?
Pours into the North Sea? I don't know. Where's it going?
Back to the Mersey with you.
Yeah. Yeah, but obviously this means the bubbler controllers have probably not got, probably out of a job.
Oh, no.
And it does mean that the bubbler itself is being put out to pasture. I discovered a website, GPSV Auctions, and it has the bubbler for sale on the website. It's been for sale since April last year. No one snapped it up yet. But if you go to GPSV Auctions, you can put a bid in on the bubbler itself. The Vitality is not for sale, so I think maybe they're just keeping that one in reserve.
How much is it? Oh, is it?
It's an auction, so
price
highest bidder.
You're not tempted? I mean, you live on water.
Mark, you never know. But so I think probably they're keeping the Vitality just in case the super sewer blows up or something, I guess.
Does make sense, yeah.
Sterling's done nearly 40 years of Sterling service, Mark. But it's
pretty impressive.
Yeah. But soon to be obsolete.
Put out to pasture.
Yeah.
And so the metamolecule invariably transcends the ectoplasm. Well, under certain circumstances. Well, like a lot of lectures, I'm trying to get across some pretty complex ideas here, and so my audience stands any chance of remembering all this, they would, of course, not only listen to me, they would desperately try to write all this down. Well, now they need only listen, safe in the knowledge that every golden word, every pearl of wisdom, every cliché that I write here will be instantly available to everyone on a sheet of paper. There you are. Even the smaller equations come out as clearly and as ridiculously as when they were written. Well, printed copies of lecture notes would be invaluable, not only in schools and colleges, but also at business meetings, where the latest copies of the sales charts could be quickly distributed. And if you feel that you've made a mistake, or you want to adjust something, then rubbing out on this whiteboard is as easy as telling a little white lie. Now, when you ask for a copy, what happens is that as the plastic sheet is wound onto a roller inside, a narrow vertical strip of the writing is focused onto a column of hundreds of tiny light sensors. As the changing image passes across the sensors, they convert it into a stream of on-off pulses. This data is stored in a memory which can be recalled any number of times to produce hard copies on a computer-style printer. Oh, and if you thought that nothing on this whiteboard so far has contained a word of truth or sense, try this.
Incidentally, that last bit made a lot more sense I didn't know why it just suddenly said 100 greatest sporting moments and then played some Shostakovich until I discovered that there's a BBC television series called 100 Great Sporting Moments that plays that as the theme tune and has that as the logo of the opening title sequence.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Do you not remember it? It ran from...
No, I don't. No.
It ran from 1982 until 1993. So a real sort of...
Wow.
A real commitment.
That's a long countdown.
It was almost like an incidental series. Each episode's about 20 minutes long. So it seems like the sort of thing they just cobbled one together every so often when they needed filler.
Yeah.
And he's literally just that. They just
I suppose, like most American episodes would have been an hour-long episodes, 40 minutes. So you need these 15, 20-minute segments, don't you, to kind of complete the hour. No, I don't have any recollection of that whatsoever.
Yeah, so that explains that end bit, which I was confused by. But yeah, back to the whiteboard. I really enjoyed this. This was like I thought it was a fun invention where it's something that you absolutely would not need these days, but is entertaining to watch. And you go, oh yeah, that would have been really useful back then. I think.
Yeah, it would have been good for the year and a half that the technology would have been at its most important. It would have been great. You'd have been laughing.
And obviously, I mean, you'd immediately scrawl a crudely drawn penis on there and print out 100 copies instantly. Yeah. I was absolutely shocked, Mark, to discover that you can still buy one.
Wow.
There's a load of websites that have them as out of stock or temporary, or this is sold out or unavailable or something like that. But they're still listed on their websites. So I think if essentially they're not manufacturing them anymore. But I found one website that still had one for sale. It will set you back £1,020.
That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. And I also found this YouTube video where somebody demonstrates it. It's the Panasonic UB5335 Panna board. It's astonishing, and this is from 12 years ago. This video. It's astonishing how similar it is to Kieran's one. It's basically all as different as the printer is on the printer controls on the other side.
Oh yeah, I see.
I'll now show you how to copy what's written on this page of the whiteboard. Just press the copy key on the printer, and it will just scroll through, copying and print off. So there we have that page of the whiteboard printed out.
Same pace as well. Like they haven't increased the speed of it. Yeah.
Isn't exactly the only extra thing it seems to have is it's got a USB port, so you can plug in a thumb drive and get it as
save it that way.
Get it as a PDF rather than as a hard copy. But other than that, identical thing. So they must have been selling a few of them over the years. I don't know. I don't know how popular they were. I've never seen one in real life.
No, not at all. No. And actually, to me, the thing that wowed me was not the kind of the inbuilt kind of printer / fax machine element. It was more like the idea that you could pre-draw your whiteboard images, because it looked like there were at least 3 or 4 that Kieran had available to scroll through.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's almost like they're burying the lead. The idea of having a whiteboard in classroom and then pressing a button and say, "Oh, I've already put this graph in," or whatever. It just seems like it's a bit of a no-brainer. But I mean, I liked it. But as I think we both agreed, it's like it's difficult not to kind of slightly fall in love with stuff like this, which is like a kind of an old-fashioned solution to a problem that no longer exists.
Yes,
it's adorable. You just want to give it a hug.
Yes, yeah. Actually, been a lot of quite inconsequential inventions this episode, isn't there?
Yeah.
And I mean, this doesn't really.
This next one.
Yeah.
Anyone for squash?
I'm losing at squash again. But today I do have an excuse, because I'm playing against someone who, believe it or not, is using a square racket. And it's easy to see why it helps. Because the side is parallel to the wall, or of course, the floor It's marvellous for those difficult balls, and especially good in awkward corners. Right, let's see if it helps me. Perfect for a lazy squash player. But I'll have to wait to improve my game, because this square racket is the only one in the world, belongs to Danny Lee, who's moved 20 places up the world ranking since using it. So he isn't lending it to anyone for long. Even for someone who obviously needs help, like me. Till next week, good night.
Judith is very down on her squash skills there.
She's pretty good, isn't she?
I mean, yeah, she's hitting it. And she's playing against a professional squash player. I think that's, and he's using a cheating racket. Right,
cheating, yeah.
I'm astonished that a racket that is so wildly different from the standard is allowed to be used in competition.
Well, I do suggest in my notes that I suspect it wasn't for very long.
My issue with it is that it's square.
Yes.
So surely it's only beneficial if you're holding it at a certain angle towards the wall. Otherwise, it's not beneficial at all, is it?
Well, I don't know how unbeneficial it is outside of the unusual and unlikely circumstances that you need to hit a ball at exactly the right combination of angles that your square-headed racket actually fits into.
Yeah.
Which is why I think your point in the notes about the fact that that's a wildly unlikely circumstance that it's ever going to, because like even if you're just slightly off, it's you're gonna miss anyway. Like it has to. It's tosh.
But I think when I first watched this, I thought Judith was playing against Howard. Which makes no sense because Howard isn't presenting it.
No, he's not in there. Actually, I didn't realise that until this time round. It was like, oh, he does look like Howard.
Danny Lee, as his name is, does astonishingly like Howard in this piece. Maybe lots of people in the mid-'80s look like Howard. I don't know. I can't remember. Maybe was it a popular look? The Howard.
The Howard look.
Yeah, the Howard.
I don't know.
Like the Rachel was in the 90s.
Damn,
you had the Howard.
That would have been the third question I would have asked him if I had the opportunity.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have him pegged down as a trendsetter, don't we?
Oh, definitely. Well, I mean, how many men were wearing bolo ties? Not many. Ballsy, Russ. Ballsy. That's what that is.
But yes, Danny Lee is age 62 now. So he still teaches squash. He's involved in a lot of squash things. His highest world ranking was in May 1985 when he reached number 30. So yeah. I mean,
that's legitimately high.
Yeah. Was it this racket? I don't know. He seems to think it might have been. He's got a whole website, well, not a whole website, but a whole page on a website where he talks about this racket, which was dubbed the Shark for some reason. I don't really know why. I don't think I've ever seen a square shark. Have you seen a square shark?
No, I've not seen this. Nope.
No. Apparently advanced.
Lego. Outside of a Lego kit, no.
Yeah. It was actually invented by his tennis doubles partner, a man called Jerry Evenden. And advantages of it apparently were, it was made of the same grade of carbon fibre used to build space shuttles. So it was strong and light.
All right.
It's always in it.
Yeah, go on. Yeah.
It had the largest stringing area of any racket up to that time.
Cheating.
It was strung in thin, multi-filament string, which frayed like guts. I don't really know what that means.
Okay.
It had a unique cork dampening core, whereas other early carbon fibre rackets tended to vibrate. And this one, I really don't understand. It was the lightest racket of its time and had no bumper strip, just individual grommets. What does that mean? I mean, sounds impressive.
It does, doesn't it? That to me, Ross, sounded like a list of cheating. Genuinely, as well as like, fuck it, mate. Why not just bring a tennis racket in?
Yeah.
Oh, it's got the biggest head of any squash. It's a tennis racket. Yeah, but I'm playing squash with it, so therefore it's a squash racket.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And then Danny Lee goes on to, I think it's probably easiest if I just read out what he wrote, because he covers the history of the racket just as well as I could possibly put it in words. I might as well just use his own words.
Oh, please.
The racket received unprecedented publicity and was featured on Tomorrow's World. Yeah, see, it was, wasn't it? Where I was interviewed by Judith Hann, he's called her.
Okay.
Thames Sport and several worldwide TV shows. My photograph with the racket was on the back page of the Daily Mail, and it was featured in all the national papers. The Observer had a large back page feature in its technology section with interesting drawings. So momentum had now been lost, and I could only play with the prototype. Interestingly, as a result of the Shark's larger head size, the rules of squash were changed to allow the bigger rackets that have become standard in the game for the past 20 years. The changes in the game at all levels are in great part down to this rule change. Jerry was desperately keen to have the racket made in Britain, but as both he and I had very little money, and he had no longer trusted the racket companies, we had to enlist the help of a private investor. A successful businessman called John Parkinson, who I knew from playing Yorkshire League for Collingham, saw the potential and was prepared to invest 50 grand for a share of the company. A deal was done. We started production on a small scale at a British factory. This time, the lightness and feel were fantastic. But again, and for the same reasons, nobody consulted Jerry or I on the detail, and the rackets broke far too easily. It was a disastrous move which hadn't been approved by Jerry. I was the go-between in the doomed relationship between John and Jerry. I guess Jerry lighting up a spliff in a business meeting wasn't quite the style that John was used to. Jerry still held the registered design, but his lifestyle became even less mainstream, and his motivation levels dropped. I signed for Wilson, who had high quality carbon fibre rackets, and that company, along with Prince and Head, led the way and carved up the lion's share of the high end of the market. The Shark was no longer there to take the sizable chunk that it deserved. One of the reasons that I'm writing this is every now and then people post things about the Shark on social media that are well-intentioned and quite interesting, but normally they have one or two facts completely wrong. This is a completely factual brief history of the squash racket that was world famous for a few weeks. A racket that really was ahead of its time, brought down by a combination of distrust, incompetence, snobbery, and inverted snobbery.
Snobbery and inverted snobbery. Wow.
So he's not bitter about any of that at all.
No, God, no, indeed. Well, fair enough. It's good that he's managed to shed these concerns and issues, isn't it? And just got on with his life. Okay, great.
Does he?
Well, I suppose I like it more. It's interesting that it was never actually banned. I would have fucking banned it. I was in charge of squash. There's your snobbery.
Do you imagine he just obviously envisaged himself living in a castle, a carbon fibre castle, built upon square squash rackets.
No rumble strix, just grommets as far as the eye can see. Sit on my sofa. It flails like gut. Phrase like gut. Yeah. Fabulous. Do you know, I was thinking about in the same way that I've never had an electric blanket because obviously the fear of the devil was put into us as children. I had the similar response to squash, where like I feel like there was at least one episode of Casualty where people were playing squash, and either the way they snapped and landed on their racket meant it went through them, or the way they careened with the wall meant that like bones were sticking out of them. And it was always like I don't know. I felt like when we were growing up, the two things you associate with squash: one,
heart attacks.
Only yuppies played it.
Oh, I was going to say heart attacks.
Oh, and the other two is like, it was so high intensity that no one left a squash court uninjured.
and I never understood why Americans never played squash. They always played racquetball. Is that squash but in padding? Do you think?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah.
So it's all about the paddle these days, isn't it? Is it paddle? Everyone plays.
No, it's just paddle. No, it is paddle. Pickleball and paddle.
Pickleball. That's the other one, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's two. Yeah, they're basically the same thing. Aren't they? Basically.
Obviously, it's impossible to picture pickleball without imagining people smashing girkins at each other, is it?
Well, that's exactly. It took me, I didn't understand what it was. Yeah. Think fast, Cope.
And I mean that, as they say, Mark,
is that. Well, then, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's start with the year in context. What's the cinema box office?
Well, we're just after Christmas here, so we've got some classic Christmas movies still in the box office, I would say.
Fabulous.
Top 9. Number 9, Give My Regards to Broad Street.
Okay.
Number 8, A Private Function.
Mm-hmm.
Number 7, family favourite, The Killing Fields.
Happy Christmas, everyone. Yeah.
Number 6, Dune, R.I.P. David Lynch.
Yeah, it was very sad when he died.
Number 5, Johnny Dangerously.
No idea what that is.
It's got Michael Keaton in it.
Okay.
Number 4, Gremlins.
Oh, okay. That's Christmassy.
Number 3, it's just called Water.
No idea what that is.
It's starring Michael Caine, Leonard Rossiter and Billy Connolly.
Okay.
No idea.
Never heard of it.
Number 2, The Terminator.
Okay.
And number 1, who are you going to call? Ghostbusters.
Oh, well, okay, that's cool. Pop chart?
Number 10, Since Yesterday by Strawberry Switchblade.
Okay.
Number 9, Everything Must Change by Paul Young. I don't really notice, Mark. Is that recently that terrible case in France of that man who's drugging his wife?
Yes.
Did you see any of the court drawings of him?
Yes.
Didn't you not think they looked exactly like caricatures of Paul Young?
Not at the time, Russ. No, but I will have to double check.
Have a Google. He looks exactly like somebody just drawn a caricature of Paul Young.
You'll forgive me if I don't put that on the socials with because I do like to do a comparison of like who wore it better, but I might leave that one alone.
Number 8, Step Off Part 1 by Grandmaster Melly Mel and the Furious 5.
Yep.
Number 7, who are you going to call? Ghostbusters, Ray Parker Jr.
Naturally, yeah.
Number 6, I Know Him So Well, Elaine Page and Barbara Dixon. Number 5, Shout, Tears for Fears. Number 4, Like a Virgin, Madonna. Number 3, Last Christmas, Stroke Everything She Wants, Wham. Number 2, Do They Know It's Christmas? Well, it's not. It isn't Christmas. It's January the 17th. I mean, come on now.
Stop buying it, guys.
Come on now.
Who's buying it still?
Number 1, great song. I Want to Know What Love Is by Foreigner.
Gosh, hey?
Gonna take a little time.
Yeah, there's our secret Limmy reference for the episode. Prices, Russ.
Now we've done an episode very close to
this
before. I think within just a couple of weeks. So I don't think
this will soon be the burden that we must accept
so
in every episode.
I thought I would look for something slightly different.
Because I know everyone listening has remembered the prices from the last time.
Exactly, yeah. Well, they're all noting it down in their spreadsheets, aren't they? So I did manage to find, this is quite interesting actually, Liverpool Echo. I don't know where they found it. I think they found it in the back room of a McDonald's in Liverpool. But they found a priceless poster from McDonald's from 1985. So I'll give you a rundown of how much the burgers at McDonald's cost in 1985. So standard hamburger, 43 pence. This is eat-in price, by the way. The eat-out price is about 6 pence cheaper.
Okay.
Cheeseburger, 48 pence. Filet-O-Fish, or what's Trump call it? Was it just Fish Delight?
Was it? Yeah,
Fish Delight. Yeah. Fish Delight, 48 pence. Quarter pounder, 85 pence. Le Big Mac, 89 pence. Quarter pounder with cheese, 97 pence. Milkshake, 46 pence. Large French fries, 39 pence. Large drink, 32 pence. And apple pie, 25 pence.
Wow. I don't know whether they're cheap or not. Like, I feel like burgers were like £1 up until about 5 years ago when inflation went through the roof. Argos catalogue.
Well, what? It is, of course, the Russell Hobbs Highline Microchip Automatic Kettle.
Microchip?
Yes, it's micro-chip. It's manufactured from Kamatl. I don't know what Kamatl is. I think we may have had it before. I assume it's a special metal made for kettles. But then when you call it... Do you call it metal? Kettle metal? I don't know. Anyway, touch button on and off controls with neon light indicator. Switches off when boiled. It boils as little as 1 cup of water. 2,200 watts, capacity 2.5 pints, and that will cost you £19.99.
Very good. Magazine covers?
New Scientist has a man absolutely loving smoking a fag, enrobed by a crab, saying "the cancer that counts." Also inside Science under Reagan the first time and the future of Europe in space. Do you think that smoking's back, Mark? I was thinking about that. I feel like smoking might be back.
There was an article I read the headline of today. I don't know where I saw it, but it was basically something along the lines of David Lynch fans giving up smoking because it killed them, which I thought was quite interesting. Do I think smoking's back? Where was I? What country was I in recently where there was a weird amount of smoking? Maybe it was Portugal at the end of last year. But
Mediterraneans love smoking, but they all seem to be immune. They're all immune to it, aren't they? They all smoke like chimneys and then just die when they're 98.
That or they die when they're 32. And we never. So we only see young people and old people. We don't see that middle age group in between, unless they're 35-year-olds who just have really bad skin. I don't. Do you know? The thing is, the generation below us, they're kind of quite abstemious, right? So, like, I don't think it is back. What I suspect might happen, though, is that people our age who got into vaping, at some point they're just going to, like, fuck it, and just start smoking again.
Yeah.
However, I was gobsmacked to be told the price of 20 cigarettes.
Well, how much is it these days? I don't have no idea.
Oh, it was like 16, 17 quid for a pack. Yeah. So it's like, it is so expensive. And equally, you texted me in the summer. Was it Colin, the taxi driver from Cork or whatever?
Oh.
Him and his wife.
Canada Joe,
40
yeah.
a day? They have like a 40 a day habit between them.
Yeah.
And they were spending like 36 euros per day.
Yeah, I remember that.
Every day on smoking.
that.
It's like, that is why people won't go back to smoking, I think. Because it's bloody expensive.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's not cool.
Well, it's not cool, Mark. What are you talking about?
It's not cool, Russ. It's not cool. I mean, it
Is
used
this
to be,
cool?
obviously.
Is this cool?
Is it cool? Am I cool? Am I cool?
Scientific American, the crossbow. Way behind us, Mark. We covered the crossbow many episodes ago.
We damn well did.
Popular Science, Super Sweepers versus Smart Minds, engineering story behind the secret war, and can brainy new cars outwit car thieves? Time magazine has what looks like a quite strongly airbrushed photo of Nancy Reagan. So it says White House co-star Nancy Reagan's growing role.
Indeed. She was basically president by the end, wasn't she?
14 Times, Phantom Attackers, plus weird tales from Finland, Ireland and Russia. Private Eye, Rent-A-Womb, new shock. And then there's a picture of the Tories in the Commons. Maggie's saying, "What are we going to do about the babies?" And then Nigel Lawson's a few people down saying, "I'll put VAT on them." Now, I looked, and this references
biting.
This references the fact that the first ever case, or first ever known case, of somebody paying a surrogate mother happens just before this.
All right.
And it was
So
a bit
that thing
it was
makes
a big hoo-ha at the time.
Yeah.
But
Well,
it was
not
known
if
as
you use
it
a
was known as
surrogacy.
the rent-a-womb. Obviously, it's rent-a-womb rather than surrogacy.
Yep.
But yes, they brought in new laws because of it. And Playboy, I'm pretty sure we've had this one before. It's Goldie Hawn sitting in a giant martini glass with their legs out. I know it led me to think. It's funny. Goldie Hawn is a great name for the sort of person that normally appears in Playboy, isn't it? You know, but
yeah.
But yeah, no, that's it really.
And I believe it's a real name, right?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, then let's get into the audit proper. Then, so the most important invention.
Most important
Thames
invention,
Bubbler?
I think it's got to be the Thames Bubbler, isn't it? That's
Thames
the
Bubbler,
only,
right?
it's
Yeah.
the only sense of
Well,
really.
seeing half the inventions we saw in this episode are the same invention 3 times. We have a smaller pool to fish in than normal. Most worthless invention?
That racket. Oh no, or maybe either the wheel or the racket.
I think the wheel. Yeah, I suppose yeah, interesting. Well, I mean, I suppose I've been inclined to go with the wheel because at least that racket he thinks got him 30, 40 places up the world ranking, right?
Whereas,
so like it benefited him.
Whereas that wheel just got Maggie round a park illegally slightly faster.
And of course we've never seen it since.
No.
Or so yeah, I'd go with the wheel. The only thing I was thinking about is the whiteboard scanner, but obviously the fact that it was available 12 years ago means that there was an audience for it somewhere. Most inaccurate prediction of the future.
I think, is it a prediction of the future? I don't know, but it's kind of like the idea that there's pinhead bits of strange matter hitting the Earth all the time.
Yeah,
we definitely would have known about it if it was.
Well, we probably wouldn't.
No.
We wouldn't be here. But somebody would have known about it. Yeah, but it would have ended everything that we know. Yeah, that's a good shout. Worst screw up. I don't think there is anything awful. I mean, there's Max rejecting his opportunity to sit in the mat, but other than that, really, that's
Maggie not eating her hat
awful.
as she promised.
Gosh, yeah. I mean, the thing is that was added in after the fact, right? So it seems.
I know. Hang on, McCann's glasses fall off the first time. He swings his hammer, which is an incredible breach of health and safety.
I
could have had his eye out.
Chilled to my bone. I was, yeah. Very good. Best attempt at making something boring interesting. I do think the amount of interesting bits of business that were in the Thames Bubbler bit do make something that is moderately boring much more interesting than it could have been.
But also, they did build an entire set just to demonstrate. Just to demonstrate
electric blanket. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Yeah, that's it, isn't it? Yeah, yeah. It reminded me of Labyrinth, right? You know, when she wakes up in her bedroom again, and she's actually still in. Yeah, that's exactly what it. That's a perfect response. Best use of music.
Well, the only real use of music is the Leo Kottke, really. Yeah, and there's obviously that little blast of Shostakovich as well. But I think Leo Kottke is more.
No, I think you're
suitable.
absolutely correct. Best or worst use of furniture.
Well, Maggie's bed, surely.
Dentist chair, but it has to be the bed, not least because they get back to it.
Yeah.
Most notable clothing, Russ.
It's got to be Maggie's gym jams, isn't it? Aquafresh gym jams.
Aquafresh pajamas or the passion killing socks.
Well, that's part of the ensemble, isn't it? Is that part of the?
I suppose, yeah. Okay, all right. So if we say the pajamas, we're including the socks there as well. Very good. Did we see anything in the episode that made it through to the future? Well, I suppose you can still get electric blankets.
Electric blankets, electric carpets.
I cannot believe that Thames Bubbler is still going.
Thames Bubbler, yeah. Those dentine pins were used until very recently.
Yeah. And you could get the whiteboard scanner up until
yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
What a time to be alive. And what did this episode tell us about the 17th of January in 1985? Well, one thing for certain, it was cold.
It was cold, yes, yeah.
Straight chilly, bro.
Yeah. There's a sense of that sort of, there's still that, I think the 80s episodes, the first half of the 80s have a more, because they're closer to the 70s, there's a certain cozy, more domestic quality to them.
Yes.
Whereas the later ones are more outgoing and outward looking, whereas this one has still got that sort of domesticity to it, I think, in general. Do you see what I mean?
I do. Yeah, I do. Because obviously, when I think of some of especially the first one we did, obviously it was about, there was that whole boring bit about steam cleaning nuclear power plants or whatever, and not doing that. But then there was the whole thing about like the degrizzling machine, giving steaks to kids for. Yeah, you're right. There was a kind of yeah, maybe there was definitely a bias towards domesticity in those. Yeah, up until probably probably not long after this episode aired. Yeah, it is the 80s where it begins to. No, I think that's a really good shout.
Once the Reaganomics really kick in.
Yeah. Tomorrow's World Tropes, Russ. Presenter having to speak over louder sounds?
No, sadly not.
No. The closest we got actually was Kieran still speaking as he seemingly crumpled up that paper right next to his microphone on his lapel or whatever. But yeah, no, unfortunately not. Maggie Philbin sleeves do match her body because she's in that fabulous pajama ensemble.
And also the cycling gear as well. That's all.
Oh, that's true. Well. Yeah. Nothing to do with oil rigs. The closest we got to a suspiciously obvious brand name on the ad-free BBC was the Teacher's bottle, but I suspect that doesn't count. Clear and blatant lying? Don't remember anything egregious where you go like, that's just straight up not true.
No, closest being Kieran's suggestion that the Stranger Matter wouldn't.
True, but that was based on the best knowledge at the time. No evil farmers. No casual sexism. No labs or space filled with darkness and coloured lights. There were no Dutch angles. No Iceland presented from a gantry. Does the episode end in a damp squib, Russ?
It's not a great invention, but it's fairly high. You've got
high energy.
High energy, yeah. You got Judith leaping around, smacking the ball about. So I think it covers itself.
I've got a bad feeling about this. I'm going to carry on down the list. Woolard and Macann abroad are common in a small European town. No. That's a no. Any lasers?
No.
Any magnets? No. Any? Oh, thank God.
Yeah, Thames Bubbler.
We got one boat. Did we travel to Shepherd's Bush? No, we didn't.
No, I went to Norway.
This, I feel very safe in saying, is the lowest return we've ever had on the TV tropes, on the TW tropes list.
Which is weird because it seemed like a fairly standard episode. It didn't seem out of the ordinary at all.
Pretty rote, right? I can't believe it. And yet, apparently it is, oh my God, that's incredible. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm relieved we got one. Otherwise, I think we would have to just stop doing these. Fine. God, after that bombshell, all I have left to say is that there were 1,409 episodes of Tomorrow's World ever broadcast, Russ. We have successfully covered 48, which means that we only have 1,361 left to do, Russ. That number feels like it gets lower by one every time I read it out.
Oh, no, I haven't got a calculator on me, Mark, but I think you might. I've got a feeling you might be right there.
Oh.
Yeah. If only there was only some way we could stop that happening. But there isn't. It's relentless.
No. It is the relentless march of us finding time every 3 to 5 weeks to do another one of these.
Yes. Actually, we should try and do another one fairly soon, really.
I think we should,
See, otherwise we won't get through our normal amount this year, you know.
No, which is unacceptable. And we have a big one coming up.
Yes, we do. Yes. Yeah. Exciting. But I think that's it for us now, isn't it? So, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Mark, got to go. While we've been chatting here, Mark, I went back on that website and decided to put a bid in on the Thames Bubbler. You were right. I can't resist it. I mean, I live in a seafaring nation here, Mark. I need my own bubbler. What I was thinking, what I could do is, obviously you've got the oxygen bubblers, affix a third separate tank.
Oh, yeah.
And fill it with, either fairy liquid or matey bubble bath. And, chug down the Amstel, creating a huge amount of bubbles as I go. That'd be fun, wouldn't it? Everyone would love that.
They would love you, Russ.
They'd absolutely love it, wouldn't they?
Oh, my God.
Yeah. The only issue is there's somebody bidding against me. And I fear he's got more money than me. It's a celebrity. There's a celebrity bidding against me, Mark.
Who is it, Russ? Who is it?
It's only bloody Michael Bublé.
Brilliant, Russ. Wow. I don't fancy your chances.
Dread to think what he's going to do with a Thames Bubbler. Anyway.
That was shocking.
Yes, that's it from us. So we'll say goodbye now.
Yeah.
And if you are on the internet, we will see you tomorrow.
Goodbye.